The second that golden orb appeared, Arata thought his dream of becoming a slayer was finally about to come true, but he couldn't even lay a finger on it. Before he had the chance, his piece of garbage father snatched it right out of the air, saying it would probably sell for a pretty penny. When Arata's brother Ryu tried to step in, their deadbeat dad kicked him so hard he flew back and slammed into the wall. After ditching them, their father went straight to a dude named Takatora and pawned off the golden orb for a cool 30 million. Years flew by, and one day Arata and Ryu were watching the news where some so-called hero was saving the world. This guy was on TV bragging about his own golden orb, the one with a distinct blue ring around it. They knew it was theirs in a heartbeat, because in all of Japan, there's only one golden orb for each element. That meant no cap the orb on TV was the one stolen from Arata. You already know they pulled up on him immediately to get it back. When Ryu demanded Takatora return his brother's orb, the guy played dumb, and let's just say that sent Ryu into a rage. Seeing he had no other option, Takatora told them he'd show them where the orb was leading them, into a separate room. And that's the moment that the cold hard truth hit them. They had walked straight into a trap. A soul-snatching creature was waiting inside, and before they could even react, the door slammed shut. Takatora locked them in from the outside, and instantly the creature inside fired a dark soul right at Arata. But, like the best damn brother he could be, Ryu shoved Arata out of the way, taking the full force of the blast himself. As Ryu's body started twisting and changing, he told Arata he always believed in him, right before he transformed into a massive four-armed ogre. Seeing his brother become a monster right before his eyes absolutely shattered Arata. He blamed himself for everything that had just happened, but he refused to stay down. He told himself this wasn't on him. This was the fault of the greedy, selfish people who had stolen his entire life from him. In that moment of pure rage, a dark orb materialized in front of him, as if some cosmic entity was listening in. Without a second of hesitation, Arata reached out his hand towards it. The orb merged with him instantly, sending a tidal wave of agony through his body as the transformation began. As he's screaming, trying to hold on to his sanity, a system notification pops up, telling him he's received the protection of the demon realm. On top of that, he gets a whole new skill set, including Blast Shadow Blade, Blast Armor, and Blast Flash. Bro, just got a demon starter pack. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, Takatora is laughing his head off, mocking the two brothers and talking about his grand plan to kill them. The dude is literally bragging about how he's going to use them as EXP fodder to level up his own high status. He's convinced that because the boys are just peasants, he's already dealt with the problem for good. But little did he know Arata was in the middle of a serious glow-up. When the excruciating pain finally starts to fade, it clicks for Arata that he might have just absorbed the entire power of that dark orb. He's still trying to process this when his brother, now a full-blown monster, comes charging at him, ready to crush him into a pancake. But before the blow can even land, Arata finds his body moving on its own, a blur of motion. Arata can't believe it. He somehow dodged the attack on pure instinct, and his body feels incredibly light. That's when he notices a status screen hovering in the air right in front of him, showing his level stats, a list of his new skills, and even a health bar. My boy just became a real... Since this is all brand new, he has no idea if he's a slayer or something else entirely. He's still trying to wrap his head around it all. When his brother comes charging at him again, Arata screams at the top of his lungs, trying to reach the person still inside the monster. He begs him not to let the dark energy completely take over. Arata swears to his brother that he's going to save him, because this time it's his turn to be the protector. He refuses to budge an inch, and just as the beast's claws are about to shred him, it suddenly freezes, letting out a scream of pure frustration. Then it smashes through the wall behind them and makes a run for it. Arata is completely stunned. He realizes there must still be a part of his brother left inside that monster. He didn't finish the attack, he ran away. And then a horrible thought hits Arata. His brother is now a target for every slayer out there. He knows what he has to do. He needs to find his brother before the slayers do. But just as he makes his decision, a magic fissure rips open the air in front of him, and a terrifying new beast crawls out from the crack. With zero hesitation, the beast lunges at Arata, trying to slash and skewer him on the spot. Arata leaps backward, dodging a punch that completely shatters the ground where he was just standing. He's still trying to process the situation when the beast's tail whips around and smacks him hard. Arata gets sent flying, crashing straight into a wall. Pain explodes through his body, and it hits him. This monster is no joke, and definitely not something to be messed with. Arata realizes he needs to end this fight quickly, so he can get back to searching for his brother. Just then, it clicks in his brain that he's actually got some new skills, like the Blast Shadow Blade. He also has Blast Armor and Blast Flash, though they're all still at level 1. The thought that he's a slayer now, too, changes everything. A surge of confidence fills Arata, and he's ready to stand his ground as the beast attacks again. As the monster charges straight for him, Arata unleashes his blast flash. A blast of dark energy erupts, sending the beast flying backward. Arata tries to catch his breath for a second, but the beast is already charging him again, and before he knows it, he's slammed against the wall once more. He feels his body starting to fail him, the control slipping away. Arata can't believe it. He finally got the power he always dreamed of, only to die moments after getting it. He wonders if this is it, if he's going to bite the dust without doing a single meaningful thing, especially saving his brother. Just as the beast is about to land the final blow, Arata enters a flow state, a sick dark purple aura swirling all around him. When he opens his eyes, they're blazing with a bright vampiric light. Then out of nowhere, a volley of projectiles slams into the beast, causing it to scream out in pure agony. Arata blacks out, and when he wakes up, the beast is lying dead in front of him, its body riddled with several different weapons. He's in total shock, wondering if he was the one who actually defeated it. He has absolutely no idea what just happened. The system dings, notifying him he's reached level 3. It finally sinks in that he actually leveled up. He must have gotten a massive stat boost for beating that beast, but right now he couldn't care less about getting stronger. He pushes all those thoughts aside to focus on what's important, finding his brother. Arata drags himself to his feet and stumbles out onto the street looking completely battered when an image of Takatora flashes through his mind. A fresh wave of rage burns inside him, and Arata becomes dead set on the fact that he's never going to forgive that guy. But with that thought, the last bit of his strength vanishes, and he passes out cold on the streets. Meanwhile, Takatora has returned to the room to confirm the brothers were dead, only to find a demolished wall and the place in total chaos. Takatora is floored when he sees the scene. There's no way he ever expected the brothers to be capable of escaping his trap. Later, Arata slowly wakes up memories he shared with his brother playing in his head. He looks around and finds himself in a completely unfamiliar place, which looks like some kind of infirmary. The last thing he can recall is going to the Goto building and fighting that creature. Suddenly, it all comes rushing back. His brother was turned into a beast, and he has to save him. Arata is about to throw himself out of bed when a nurse suddenly enters the room holding some medical supplies. She immediately tells Arata that he needs to stay in bed and rest. Arata stammers, completely at a loss for words. The nurse explains they received a call that he had collapsed on the roadside, and then points to all of his injuries, the ones he got from that intense fight with the beast. Arata had totally forgotten about all of this. But the nurse's words jolted his memory, and Arata asks where he is. The lady calmly replies that he's at a Slayer relief station. The nurse adds that she sees this kind of thing all the time, since rookie Slayers tend to go way too hard in their first fight. That's how most of them end up in a hospital bed. Arata is stunned to hear he's in a relief station, and immediately starts to wonder who on earth could have brought him there. The nurse starts lecturing him, saying he needs to go join a guild and get an official Slayer badge. She's just about to get into the nitty-gritty of all the benefits that come with guild membership, but Arata completely shuts her down mid-sentence. He just tells her he's got places to be, and she immediately goes into full-on mom mode, shouting that he isn't allowed to be moving around yet. It's way too soon, and his body absolutely needs the... Arata, defeated, just flops back onto the bed. Seeing this, the nurse finally leaves, but not before telling him to wait right there for her. The absolute second she's gone, Arata bolts out of bed and heads straight for the door. As he gets there, he overhears a couple of guys chatting about that magic beast that just showed up near the Goto building. It doesn't take long for the horrifying realization to set in that beast they were discussing is his brother. He also picks up on the fact that some unidentified Slayer is apparently tagging along with him. The dudes are saying it's going to be a massive headache for them if the beast manages to slip into a magic fissure. Arata instantly connects the dots. The guild is actively hunting his brother, and he knows it's only a matter of time. Beast before they track him down and put him in the ground for good. Arata knows he's on a clock and has to find his brother like yesterday. When the nurse finally gets back to the room, she finds it empty. Our boy made a classic escape right out the window. Arata is now tearing through the streets, completely panicked that his brother is about to get a one-way ticket to the afterlife. He remembers the conversation about a magic fissure and puts two and two together. There's a high chance his brother is trapped inside one of them. With that horrifying thought, Arata makes up his mind he's going to check every single magic fissure in the vicinity. All of a sudden, an alert blasts out over the city's public system, warning that a magic fissure has just opened up in the Asagi area. The message is clear: all civilians need to get the hell out of there. The timing is way too sus to be a coincidence, so Arata decides that's his first stop. He gets to the location of the crack and sees that it's just a low-level bronze rank fissure. He also notices a barrier is already up around it, which can only mean someone from the association has already been on site. but strangely he can't sense the presence of a single slayer anywhere nearby. Since this is literally his first time ever stepping into a magic fissure, he's understandably a little nervous, and not gonna lie, pretty scared. But that fear gets shoved to the back of his mind when he remembers why he's here. He has to save his brother no matter what. The instant he crosses the threshold, a system notification pops up, announcing that a party has entered to clear the fissure. Arata is absolutely floored by the sight that greets him on the other side. It's a freaking desert, a world completely alien from the city he just left, and he has zero clue where in this vast wasteland his brother could possibly be. With no other leads, he figures his only option is to push deeper into the... Just then, a quest notification pops up. Defeat the boss to clear the fissure. Well, if there's a boss Arata's willing to bet, it's hiding out in the deepest, most dangerous part of this place. But he also knows that getting there means fighting through hordes of other beasts, and a seed of doubt starts to grow. Can he actually handle what's coming? That question barely has time to echo in his mind before a level 3 beast spawns right in front of him. He recalls taking down a beast just the day before, but he's not entirely sure if that was a fluke or a sign of his actual strength. Regardless, he knows he's out of options. It's fight or die. He quickly taps into his skill list and summons the Shadow Blade. A wave of relief washes over Arata when the skill actually activates. The beast lunges jaws wide open, but Arata manages to throw up his Shadow Sword just in time, blocking the vicious bite. He's struggling hard, gritting his teeth, as he pushes back with every ounce of strength he can muster. But it's not enough. The beast's raw power sends him stumbling backward. And in that moment, it finally hits him. This is what it really means to fight a monster. All that training with his brother, it feels like it counts for Jack Squat against the real thing. Still, he shakes it off, focuses up, and in a flash, he blitzes the beast, slicing it into pieces. The moment it falls, a notification dings. He's leveled up, jumping straight from level 3 to level 5. But before he can even catch his breath, a whole pack of monsters materializes right in front of him. An icy wave of pure dread crashes over him. Arata's mind is reeling. There's no way a measly bronze-ranked dungeon should be spawning this many mobs. He's left wondering if he even stands a chance if all those things decide to jump him at once. Instead of letting fear get the best of him, Arata was ready to throw down with these monsters. He was banking on being able to use that totally busted skill from the day before, thinking it gave him a fighting chance. But the second those creatures started charging him, Arata knew he was so screwed. The problem was he didn't have a clue how to actually activate that OP skill on command. Right as he was about to be turned into Monster Chow, a massive inferno erupts from nowhere and completely torches the beasts. Arata's just standing there shook when a voice behind him demands to know what kind of skill he just pulled off. But our boy can't even answer. He's just completely blown away by the sheer destructive power he just witnessed. This unknown dude is staring Arata down like he's a major threat, revealing that the association called him about an unidentified slayer in the area. And judging by the massive explosion he just saw, he's pretty damn sure Arata's the guy he's looking for. Arata gets a good look at him and immediately clocks the powerful aura. This guy is a top-tier golden slayer with a fire attribute. This new character's name is Ryo Kuji, and he's a big deal. Not just anyone, he's a core member of the notorious Lion Flame Guild. And he didn't come alone. He's rolling deep with 2 other slayers, Shumaki Shima and Hayato Akagi, both of them silver ranked, which is nothing to sneeze at. Arata is bugging out, wondering why a VIP like him, one of the 5 great kings, is even here. A few leftover monsters try to interrupt their little chat, and Ryo, looking bored, just snaps his fingers and angrily burns them to a crisp. He leaves a smoldering crater behind, pretty much just flexing hard in front of our main character. This hits different for Arata, who's seeing the power of a golden slayer up close for the very first time. Ryo casually walks up to him, commenting on how strange it is for so many monsters to be swarming a low-level bronze-rank fisher. Ryo then gestures to Arata's Shadow Sword, getting straight to the point and asking what his skill is. That question totally blindsides Arata because he has been desperately wondering the exact same thing. The only thing he knows is that his ability doesn't fit into any of the 5 main attributes, but that's it. This just makes Ryo even more curious, saying, Arata is a real weirdo using a skill that's even weirder. With a dead serious look, Ryo then demands to know what the hell he's doing in this fissure in the first place. Arata immediately realizes he can't say he's looking for his brother. If he does that, they'll just label him a target for subjugation too. No cap. So Arata decides to just play it cool, ignore the question, and try to dip. He gives Ryo a quick, thanks for the save, and just starts to walk off. See, orbs are supposed to resonate with a person's inner power. They manifest an attribute that's closest to what the user is all about. Every slayer knows this, but when Ryo looks at Arata, he sees none of that. It doesn't add up, and that's when it all clicks for Ryo. He stops Arata and says he's finally figured him out. He calls him the irregular slayer they've all been hearing rumors about. Arata stops and tries to argue. He plays dumb, saying he has no idea what that's supposed to mean, and that he really has to go, but Ryo cuts him off. He drops the bomb that the association themselves ordered him to bring Arata in for questioning. Ryo cracks his knuckles and says, "Don't take it personally, kid," before launching himself at Arata with a punch wrapped in flames. Just before the fire blast connects, Arata instinctively raises his sword to block the attack. To Arata's complete shock, his shadow sword is completely disintegrated by Ryo's overwhelming power. Even Ryo seems surprised the sword just vanished. Arata scrambles backward to make some space, but Ryo is just getting warmed up. Ryo tells his lackeys not to interfere, smirking, because he's actually starting to enjoy this little fight. His two subordinates immediately obey, but at the same time they're scared they'll get turned to dust. They know if their boss gets serious, they could easily get caught in the crossfire and just get deleted. Ryo doesn't waste a second before he lets loose a fresh barrage of fireballs aimed right at Arata. Arata realizes he is in serious danger and makes a desperate dive behind a large rock to avoid the fiery impact. When the blazing inferno finally dies down, he tells Arata to just surrender now if he doesn't want to get turned into a pile of charcoal. Hiding behind a rock, it hits Arata like a ton of bricks that he's never going to see his brother again if he gets caught by Ryo. And just like that, Ryo leaps into the air and launches a massive fireball. This thing's basically a heat-seeking missile aimed right at him. Realizing his cover is blown, Arata dives out of the way. He manages to dodge the hit by a hair's breadth. Ryo lands looking smug, telling Arata that playing hide-and-seek isn't gonna cut it. While Ryo is just laughing his head off, Arata is frantically doom-scrolling through his skill list, trying to find something to use against this lunatic. This dude is giving off major Firelord Ozai vibes, no cap. Arata finally finds a skill that he thinks will come in clutch. Arata gets back on his feet, and you can tell from his new stance that the whole vibe has shifted. Ryo clocks it immediately. As Arata holds his hands out, Ryo scoffs, saying that whatever parlor trick he's about to pull is totally useless against him, same as always. To prove his point, Ryo hurls a whole barrage of fireballs right at Arata. But just as they're about to make contact, Arata pops his new skill and straight up absorbs the flames. The move definitely takes a toll on him, but he's still on his feet. Ryo finally realizes this kid isn't just some random scrub. Still, Ryo flexes some even crazier firepower, telling Arata to just surrender if he doesn't want to get smoked. Arata responds by summoning an even longer shadow sword, declaring that his brother is waiting for him, and he can't be stopped here. The moment he says brother, it hits Ryo different, making him lose his focus for a split second. That's all the opening Arata needs to launch himself forward. By the time Ryo snaps out of his daze, Arata is already flying at him with his sword. At the very last second, Ryo manages to block the attack. Using the armor on his wrist, he successfully holds his ground. But he can tell something in Arata is built different now. After a brief standoff, Arata suddenly backs off and tells Ryo he's got to go no further explanation. Ryo is stunned by this. He tells Arata that if he's serious about protecting someone, then he's the one who needs to defeat the boss. Arata is shocked, realizing that for the first time, Ryo is actually talking to him, not at him. Ryo continues telling Arata he needs to level up way faster and to stop being so reckless, because at this rate, he's just going to burn himself out. Arata cracks a smile and thanks Ryo for the advice before taking off. Ryo watches him leave with a grin that screams, "Proud dad." His subordinates run up reporting that they've taken care of all the beasts in the area, but Ryo just replies that Arata is one fiery kid. His two goons are absolutely floored to see Ryo smiling, which is a sign that he's actually in a good mood for once. Meanwhile, back at the Navy Guild, a report comes in about another magic fissure. The guildmaster sends one of her top-tier silver slayers, Aoi Ichika, to handle the fissure. And unlike most people, you can tell Ichika is absolutely stoked to get into a fight. It's written all over her face. A while later, Arata gets forcibly kicked out of the fissure because someone already defeated the boss, and he's pretty sure it was Ryo. Even before the dungeon was cleared, Arata had searched high and low, but there was zero sign of his brother anywhere. Arata then sees a news report asking people to call in if they spot the magic beast. Seeing this solidifies his next move. He figures he can't rely on anyone else to help him, and he has no other choice but to take care of everything himself. Right on cue, he gets an alert that a new magic fissure is opening up in District 4. As usual, every resident in the area gets a warning pinged to their phone telling them to get out of the area ASAP. Since the district is pretty close to his current location, Arata decides he has to check it out. He bolts toward the area, hoping no other slayers get there before him. He arrives to see it's only a bronze-ranked fissure. Since the fissure hasn't been cleared yet, Arata holds onto a sliver of hope that his brother might be inside. But just as he's about to step into the portal, two guys from the Navy Guild Hanamida and Ishinari show up. They immediately tell him that the fissure is completely off limits. But things get real spicy when the two guards realize Arata doesn't even have a badge. They immediately start roasting him, no holding back. They're calling him some F-tier scrub who couldn't even get into a guild. In their eyes, he's just a normal slayer. And in the world of slayers, being called normal means you're at the absolute bottom of the food chain. Meanwhile, Gagui, a gold-rank slayer, is basically... Arata is low-key stunned by the audacity of these two, wondering who the hell they even are as they keep running their mouths. Turns out they're bragging that their master is the one who's going to clear this fissure. Because of that, they tell Arata that nobody else gets to go in, especially a piece of trash like him. Arata is completely lost, having no clue what they're on about, and tries to tell them he's got a damn good reason for needing to get inside and fast. The two basically tell Arata they don't give a damn about his reasons, because there's zero chance they're letting him pass. Then they take it to a whole new level by straight up attacking him. Arata, being built different, easily dodges before the hit can land. He tries to keep a cool head, telling the two clowns that he's seriously in a hurry. However, when Arata sees that they have absolutely zero chill, he finally decides it's time to teach them a lesson in pain. He whips out his shadow blade and blitzes toward the duo, ready to show them what real trouble looks like. But all of a sudden, he can't move his feet. He looks down and realizes he's caught in a nasty mud trap set by these annoying goons. Before he can process what's happening, he starts sinking into the mud, which he quickly finds out is completely bottomless. He knows he's about to get clapped if he doesn't figure something out. But for now, Arata can only glare at the two, completely stuck. Just then, a voice from behind them cuts in, asking the two bullies what they think they're doing to Arata. They spin around, and the voice belongs to Aoi Ichika. The two are totally shocked to see her. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near here. Without wasting a second, Aoi turns to Arata and uses her power to save him. With a wave of water, she effortlessly lifts Arata right out of the mud. Aoi then demands to know why slayers are out here fighting each other. Still trying to catch his breath, Arata explains to Aoi that these two Hanamida and Ishinari are blocking him from getting into the fissure. Aoi's heard rumors about slayers who jump into fissures before they've been properly checked out. They do it to conquer the dungeon solo and hog all the rewards for themselves, and looking at these two losers, she figures out they're exactly that type of greedy player. The duo realizes Aoi is going to be a major problem, and decides they have to stop her no matter what. They're cocky, thinking they can easily overpower her. After all, she's just a support slayer. The two don't even hesitate launching their ice powers right at her, but Aoi just throws up a barrier, casually protecting both herself and Arata. After blocking their first volley, Aoi looks at Arata and tells him to fight them while she backs him up. Arata is shook, admitting he's never actually fought another person before, but since they're out of options, he agrees to do it. Aoi thanks him for trusting her and then pops one of her skills, Merlin Schnell. The skill instantly buffs Arata, and he can feel the power surge as his entire body becomes incredibly light. This hits different than before. Aoi reassures him that the fight is going to be way easier now, so he's free to go all out on these delinquents while she keeps him buffed with her skills. Arata is more than happy to accept, and charges the duo at a speed so fast it's just a blur. They're completely stunned. Arata is way faster now, and before they can even blink, he smacks them with his Slayer Blade. He takes them both down with just one clean strike. Best part is, Arata doesn't feel any backlash or exhaustion. He just did all that, and when he checks his stats, he sees they've absolutely skyrocketed. His AI starts freaking out, asking him if he just murked those two, but Arata quickly clarifies that he only hit them with the flat of the blade. Aoi is relieved to hear that, but she's still pissed that two dudes from her own guild are out here, acting a fool and embarrassing the whole squad. Arata clocks the Water Slayer badge on her chest and instantly puts two and two together. She's gotta be from Takatora's guild. The two of them finally get to introducing themselves, and Awa actually gives him props, admitting he's decently strong, but before they can chat anymore, they hear the two clowns they just schooled scrambling to their feet to make a run for it. As they're booking it, they drop their master's name, and it turns out to be none other than Takatora. This totally grabs Arata's attention, and suddenly Aoi is locked in too. She reveals she's planning on spilling the tea to the Guildmaster Ray about all the shady stuff Takatora's been pulling behind his back. Once the bullies are gone, Aoi gets them back on track, reminding Arata they've still got a fissure to clear. Arata's a bit hesitant, but Aoi tells him not to worry since the rest of the guild will be showing up soon. She lets him know she can still fight alongside him until then, because she already got permission to clear the fissure herself. Arata is genuinely confused by this, so Aoi explains that teaming up is the smart move, especially with all the reports that low-rank fishers have been showing some seriously abnormal and freaky features lately. On top of that, Oyui is a support slayer, and Arata can't forget how her earlier buff was absolutely cracked. He finally gets a chance to thank her, and Awa asks him again if he's down to take on the Fisher with her. Since an offer this good is basically a godsend, Arata doesn't hesitate to agree. Hyped about their new partnership, the two of them dive into the fissure, ready to cause some serious damage. The moment they step inside, Arata is shook. This place is a whole different beast from the last one. It looks more like a creepy cave with sketchy spots everywhere, and Aoi explains that the inside of a fissure is basically a different dimension. That's why they never really know what kind of hellscape they're walking into. Aoi suggests they stay on their toes, and Arata is 100% on board with that plan. As they venture deeper, Arata realizes there isn't a single magic beast in sight, and what's more, his older brother is completely MIA. Arata knew it wouldn't be easy to find him, but since he's been blessed with this insane opportunity to run a fissure with a silver-ranked slayer, he plans on learning the ropes of proper combat while grinding some serious EXP. They suddenly run into a level 5 goblin that looks like it wants to paint the walls with their insides. Arata remembers how much he struggled with just one goblin the day before, even though they're meant to be the weakest mobs around. Without a second thought, Arata lunges at the goblin and cleanly separates its head from its shoulders. Arata's still grinning about his victory when a whole damn army of them materializes out of thin air. Fear hits him like a truck when he sees the sheer number of them, and he starts to wonder if he actually has what it takes to bring all these goblins down. Just then he feels that familiar surge as Aoi buffs him up, sending his stats through the roof. From the backline, Aoi gives him a confident smirk and tells him to show these goblins who's really in charge. Arata happily obliges, tearing through the goblins with zero mercy, and after wiping out the entire troop, he dings leveling up from 5 to 6. Aoi gives him a nod, commending him on the solid work. She says that with her backing him up, even bronze-rank beasts should be a cakewalk, and Arata can't help but agree. He tells her his whole body is just buzzing with raw power. Aoi puffs out her chest, boasting that in their guild, they call her the linchpin of rear support for a reason. But all of a sudden, Arata senses a seriously dark presence creeping up right behind them. He screams at Aoi, warning her that there's danger right on her 6. A goblin is mid-lunge, ready to slash her to pieces, but Aoi's shield pops up just in time to block the attack. Aoi whips around, a look of pure rage on her face, and completely obliterates the goblin. Arata is just blown away. Seeing how she can flawlessly chain multiple skills in a split second just goes to show what a seasoned veteran she is. She's not just agile, her ability to support her teammates is on a whole other level. Aoi notices Arata is totally lost in thought and snaps him out of it, reminding him that they need to keep moving. Arata is already looking at Aoi like she's a living legend and makes a vow to grind until he's just as strong as she is. Arata admits that he just wants to be strong enough to protect people the same way she does, and Aoi just cracks a smile. She tells him that's a pretty solid goal to have. But then she hits him with a reality check, saying he'll first have to take down the goblin horde that's got them completely surrounded. That's when it finally sinks in for Arata. They're deep in enemy territory, and he's wondering how in the world he's supposed to fight this many goblins. But when he glances over at Aoi, he sees she's as cool as a cucumber with absolutely zero. Just like before, Aoi hooks him up with a buff and basically tells him to go to town on the goblin mob. Her support just hits different, and it lights a fire in him, giving him the determination he desperately needed. He dives headfirst into the horde, slicing and dicing through the goblins without a shred of mercy. With every monster he takes down, he levels up on the fly, and in what feels like no time at all, Arata has wiped out the entire goblin squad. A system notification pops up, letting him know he didn't just level up once he skyrocketed from level 6. All the way to level 10, Arata is low-key freaking out, but as a reward for hitting level 10, he unlocks a brand new skill. It's called the Blast Cannon, but his hype gets shut down real quick when a fresh wave of goblin monsters shows up out of nowhere, and this time they brought friends. The sheer size of this new army is enough to send a shiver down even Aoi's spine. Aoi tells him their only shot is to strike first before they get completely overwhelmed. She calls his skills a bit weird, but asks if he has any way to attack from a distance, because if he doesn't, they're about to get steamrolled. Ranged attack. A light bulb goes off in Arata's head as he remembers the new skill he just got, the Blast Cannon. Bruh, this skill was practically made for this exact situation. Without a second thought, Arata activates it and unleashes hell on the goblins. A massive wave of magic erupts from his palm, instantly vaporizing a huge chunk of the enemy's front line. But Arata doesn't stop there, spamming the cannon over and over again. And before he even realizes it, the entire goblin army has been completely wiped off the map. Aoi just turns and looks at him, Then she smiles. No cap, that's all the validation Arata needed. He's just glad he was able to live up to her expectations. Aoi suggests it's time to head for the boss's room, and Arata is all for it. Right on cue, a notification pops up, telling him he's now level 12. A few moments later, they make it to the deepest part of the dungeon. Aoi tells Arata she can feel the boss's energy radiating from inside the dark cave ahead. She warns him to be careful as they press forward. Arata's nervous since this is his first real boss fight, but his drive to protect the girl beside him completely overrides his fear. They finally find the boss, and it turns out to be a massive level 15 ogre. The beast gets up from its throne and starts mumbling something in a language that's total gibberish to Arata. Without wasting any time, the monster unleashes a powerful blast of lightning from its staff. Aoi jumps in front of Arata, telling him to leave this attack to her. She uses one of her skills to create a shield blocking the attack, but she can only manage to hold it for a few seconds. The sheer force of the blast sends her flying backward onto the ground. Aoi is completely shook by the power of that lightning. This was supposed to be a simple bronze rank boss. The boss starts charging another lightning attack, and Aoi shouts that they're never going to get close to it. Not as long as the boss can keep spamming them with these insane ranged attacks. Aoi quickly tells Arata her plan she'll act as the shield and draw its fire. While she defends, Arata needs to find an opening for a counterattack. He can see she's struggling, but Aoi just tells him not to worry about her. But the whole idea of always being the one who needs protection seriously pisses Arata off. While the ogre is busy blasting away at Aoi, he charges forward. Once he gets into the perfect position, he aims and fires his blast cannon right at the ogre. Arata's attack is a direct hit, completely shattering the ogre's staff and taking away its ability to use any long-range magic. Aoi celebrates his clutch play, but the ogre is beyond furious and hurls the broken remains of its weapon straight at Arata. The sudden rage-fueled throw leaves Arata completely exposed and wide open for the attack. He tries to move, but he knows instantly that he isn't going to make it in time. Before he can even react, the shattered weapon impales him. Blood pours from Arata's mouth as he collapses to the ground in a heap. Without a moment's hesitation, Aoi rushes to his side to check on him immediately, creating a protective shield around them both. Without missing a beat, she pops another one of her skills and starts healing Arata. In seconds, the gash on his body starts knitting itself shut, and Arata lets out a nasty cough before he can finally push himself up. Aoi tells him it's just some quick first aid and asks if he's still good to go, and Arata thanks her for the clutch save. He assures her he can still throw down, but their relief is cut short when the massive ogre roars and barrels towards them again. Arata can't believe it. For a beast that huge, it's shockingly fast, and it's coming right for them with zero chill. The ogre tries to turn them into a pancake with a massive fist, but Aoi's barrier pops up just in time to block the hit. She's clearly struggling to hold back its insane power, and Arata knows they're totally screwed if they don't end this thing like right now. Arata's eyes dart around, and that's when he spots it, a small unarmored gap right on the ogre's neck. He gets it instantly, that's the weak spot. Hitting it is their only shot at taking this monster down. Just like their last play, Ui runs interference, keeping the ogre occupied, while Arata scrambles to find the perfect angle. But this time the ogre's not falling for it. It somehow senses his plan and immediately switches its focus from Aoi. It swings a colossal fist right at Arata, but in that split second before impact, Arata sees his chance, a wide-open shot at the ogre's neck. Without a moment's hesitation, he unleashes his cannon right at the weak point. The blast hits different, staggering the beast and forcing it to its knees. Aoi screams at Arata, telling him to finish it off now. Fueled by the thought that he's done being the one who needs saving, Arata summons his Shadow Blade. But before he can land the final blow, Aoi hits him with a buff, juicing him up for the attack. Arata cracks a smile, feeling the power-up from Aoi surge through him. He bolts towards the kneeling ogre and launches himself into the air, pouring every last ounce of his strength into one final swing. The sheer force behind the attack is insane, cleanly slicing the ogre's head right off its shoulders. Blood gushes out like a fountain as the massive monster finally falls to our MC. Arata just stands there staring up at the roof of the cave, catching his breath. And boom, the level up notification pops. Aoi beaming rushes over to Arata with her hand raised for a high five. Arata's both stoked and a little surprised, but he slaps her hand, returning the gesture. But with the boss defeated, the whole fissure dungeon starts to crumble around them, and the two book it for the exit. They've got to get out before they get buried alive in the collapsing fissure. They just barely manage to scramble out before the entire dungeon disperses into nothing. It hits Arata that he still hasn't found his brother, but hey, at least he got a massive power boost. He's mulling this over when the exhaustion finally hits him like a truck and he collapses to his knees. Aoi sees he's in rough shape, so she grabs his hand and tells him to come with her. Arata figures he's being dragged back to the infirmary again, but nope. Aoi pulls him straight to the Navy Guild building instead. She ushers him into a waiting room and hands him a fresh set of clothes to change into. She then ducks out, telling Arata she's got to file a report real quick. 15 minutes go by, and Arata starts wondering what's taking her so long, so he decides to pop his head out to see what's up. Just as he steps out, some girl comes sprinting down the hall, trips and nearly faceplants, but Arata catches her just in time. He's about to make some small talk when a crucial detail clicks in his head, and he immediately shuts down any potential rom-com moment. He just turns and bolts for the entrance. It dawns on him after he helped her up, that was the guildmaster of the Navy Guild. And there's no way in hell Arata can afford to get stuck in a Q&A session with her right now. Rei, on the other hand, is just standing there like, bruh, why'd he run away? She just shrugs it off and heads to the conference room. Aoi is already in there waiting for her. Rei gives her a warm welcome back, but Aoi isn't here for pleasantries and cuts right to the chase. She tells Rei there's something urgent she needs to discuss and immediately starts going off about what Takatora has been up to. He's been making some shady moves behind their back. Aoi is so fired up that Rei literally has to tell her to chill out for a second while she keeps venting. Finally, Aoi takes a breath and starts to properly explain the whole situation to Rei. Aoi drops a bombshell on Rei, revealing that Takatora has been shamelessly exploiting the fissures for his own personal gain, which totally blindsides Rei. She realizes she's going to have to handle him herself, but honestly, she's still low-key worried about Arata, especially after that close call she had with him earlier. The next day, Arata is just thanking his lucky stars he managed to slip away from Rei. He's praying she isn't onto him when he stumbles into an alley and spots a couple of slayers getting wrecked. They're struggling to protect a little kid from a nasty two-headed magic beast that's spitting fire everywhere. But Arata, he doesn't hesitate for a second, just bolts straight toward the monster. He closes the distance in a flash, and with a single punch juiced up with his shadow power, he completely shatters the beast's fire blast. The slayer who was shielding the kid can't believe his eyes. This new guy is so cracked he's not even sure if he's a registered slayer. Arata isn't about to let a good farming opportunity go to waste, so he whips out his massive shadow sword. The slayer is absolutely stunned by this, having never seen anything like that kind of power before. Arata now stands between the monster and the kids, ready for a showdown. The beast charges him, but Arata holds his ground, locking into a perfect thrust stance. And with one clean strike, he completely murks the terrifying monster. What he doesn't know is that another slayer has been watching him from the shadows, and they're definitely intrigued. Over at the Slayers Association HQ in Japan, the 5 top guildmasters known as the Kings are gathered for a meeting. You've got Jinayusuke Dojo from the Sewa Guild and Ryo Kuji from the Leon Flame Guild. Then there's Rei Isaki representing the Navy Guild. And finally, Takuto Nagihara from the Jade Sky Guild and Shion Inamori from the Kaizen Guild. Dojo kicks things off, pointing out the first major issue on their plate, the insane number of fissures. They've been popping up absolutely everywhere lately. Ryo chimes in, agreeing with him, and mentioning a recent incident where a bronze rank fissure went haywire, unleashing a horde of magic beasts. Rei adds that they're also seeing cases where boss monsters appear in fissures that are way stronger than the fissure's actual rank. It's like the whole system is bugged. Ryo, however, couldn't care less if the fissures are acting weird. To him, it's just a better training opportunity for his slayers. Takuto just smirks hearing Ryo's take on the situation. He calls Ryo out for being reckless, which totally sets Ryo off, who jumps to his feet and starts yelling at Takuto. Ryo starts flexing, claiming his guild has done way more than Takuto's, but Takuto just stays cool, completely ignoring him. He just lets Ryo rage until he finally sits back down, since all this chaos has only started happening recently. Rei wonders out loud what could be causing it. Doju theorizes that something might be changing with the magic beasts themselves. He thinks that's what's causing the sudden spike in fissure activity, but he reassures his fellow kings that whatever this change is, it's the clue that will eventually lead them to the truth. He orders everyone to report even the smallest changes, and they all agree. Next up, Dojo brings up the mysterious unregistered slayer, who's been hopping from one fissure to the next without being part of any guild. Dojo admits they have no idea what his motives are, but he suspects the changes aren't just limited to the magic beasts. He thinks slayers might be changing too. Rei then tells the group that someone matching that description showed up at her guild. Elwi mentioned his skills were unlike anything she'd ever seen, but before Rei got a chance to speak with him, he vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, we see that Takuto is the guy who was watching Arata from the rooftop earlier, but he decides to keep that little piece of information to himself for now. Rei then speculates that maybe this unidentified slayer thinks his skills are so unique and different from everyone else's that he feels like he doesn't need to join a guild. Just as Rei finishes her thought, Takuto cuts in, throwing out a wild theory. What if Arata is actually a magic beast? Ryokuji immediately loses it, telling him to shut up and stop talking nonsense while defending Arata. Rei is shocked to learn that Ryokuji has actually met this guy, and at this point Ryokuji decides there's no point in hiding it. He lets them know the kid's definitely strong, but there's no way he's a magic beast. Takuto just cracks up hearing this, admitting he was totally messing with them. Dojo then tells his crew that grabbing Arata is basically optional since they don't have the hard evidence for a real arrest warrant yet. Shion finally speaks up, telling her teammates that if Arata isn't coming quietly, they have zero reason to get obsessed with him. After dropping her 2 cents on the meeting, Shion gets up to leave like the absolute boss she is. She claims she has a tea meeting she can't miss, but as she reaches the door, she clocks a small camera mounted up high. She has no clue what it is, but little does she or anyone else on the team know Takatora is the one watching their every move. He's using a camera he secretly planted in the room earlier. From what he's seen, Takatora realizes Arata is becoming a serious problem for the 5 kings, and a plan starts forming to capture him. He figures if he pulls it off, his own influence within the association will skyrocket. Not only that, but it would end all the current chaos. It's the perfect way to solve 2 problems at once. He knows that if he's going to catch this unpredictable kid, he needs more information. Based on the intel he has, he's betting Arata has picked up the unique skill of light. Meanwhile, his brother has fully transformed into a magic beast. With these 2 key pieces of information, Takatora is pretty sure he knows exactly where Arata will show up next. He rises from his chair, deciding he needs to deal with Arata himself before it's too late. A little later, Arata sees a crowd of people running for their lives from a magic beast, but he being built different runs straight toward it. Right before he can reach the monster, he's cut off by Takatora, who's decked out in full Slayer armor. And he's wearing the most annoying smile you've ever seen. Takatora starts mocking Arata for trying so hard to stay alive, making it clear he's there to drag him away. He tells Arata to just come along quietly and make things easy. But Arata just screams at him to get the hell out of his way. Takatora then stoops low, making fun of Arata's brother turning into a monster. He laughs right in Arata's face, telling him he's going to enjoy killing his brother. That's the last straw. Pure rage takes over, and Arata unleashes his burst cannon right at Takatora. Takatora doesn't even flinch as the massive attack flies toward him. He just casually absorbs the whole thing. Arata is completely stunned by the one-shot defense, but refuses to back down, whipping out his shadow blade. He dashes toward Takatora, but he's just painfully outmatched in speed. Takatora fires off a long-range attack, trying to completely consume Arata. Arata is forced to block with his sword, but he can't handle the raw power of the attack. He gets blasted backwards and slams into the ground in agony. Takatora wastes no time gloating, telling Arata his power is only considered unique because it's new. In reality, he says it's pathetically weak. Arata somehow crawls back to his feet, wondering what's going on since he was supposed to have leveled up. Both his burst cannon and his blazing shadow blade should be stronger. He starts to wonder if it's just impossible for him to win against a Golden Slayer no matter what he does. But even staring defeat in the face, Arata manages to get back on his feet. Takatora is genuinely surprised the kid still has any fight left in him. Arata then unleashes a skill called Soot Darkness. A cloud of black smoke instantly fills the area. Takatora doesn't even bother to move, assuming Arata is just putting up a lame smokescreen. He's wondering what the plan is when suddenly a shadow attack zips right at his throat. He barely manages to block it with his own powers, and furiously starts swatting away other bizarre attacks coming out of the gloom. When the smoke clears a little, he sees Arata charging right for him. Our boy almost cuts him down, but Takatora blocks the hit with ease. Arata tells him that this is the end of the road for him, but Takatora just argues back. He goes on a monologue saying he'll keep getting stronger until he becomes one of the 5 kings, and on top of that, he's going to take over the Navy Guild. His ultimate goal is to gain total control over the entire association. Arata retorts that there's no way in hell he's just going to stand by and watch that happen. Takatora sneers, telling Arata he's not even worthy of being called one of the 5 kings before knocking him flat on his back. He tells him to stay down where he belongs with the rest of the lowlifes. Without wasting a second, Takatora summons his ice blade. He openly declares his plan to use Arata as a sacrifice, mocking him, and saying his puny sword is a complete joke compared to his own. But Arata, spitting out blood, reveals that the powerful orb Takatora is flaunting was actually stolen from him. He growls that his older brother would still be human if Takatora hadn't jacked that orb from their family. The memory of Takatora being the root of all his suffering makes Arata snap, and a sinister dark aura erupts from his body. Fueled by pure rage, Arata launches himself at Takatora, swinging his sword wildly. Takatora blocks it easily low-key, noticing Arata's gotten a bit stronger, but still thinks he's absolutely no match for him. With a simple push, he sends Arata stumbling backward, telling him to just give up and come quietly. But then Takatora decides to show him just how outclassed he is by unleashing one of his ultimate skills. With the words Ice Emperor's Prison, the entire area instantly freezes over, trapping Arata in a cage of solid ice. He can't move a muscle, completely locked down. Takatora then summons a barrage of massive icicles to finish him off, and with no way to escape, Arata is brutally knocked unconscious. The dude has zero chill, even making fun of Arata for passing out from an attack that he didn't even put his full power into. He raises his sword, ready to end Arata's life, so he can feed the association whatever fake story he wants. But just as he's about to strike, a blast of ice slams into him, stopping his attack cold. He's completely shocked. When he turns around, he sees Rei and Aoi giving him the nastiest death glare imaginable. Rei immediately calls him out, saying she's had enough of him causing trouble everywhere he goes. She demands to know why the hell he's starting a massive fight in public in the middle of the day. Takatora's jaw drops when he sees the guildmaster, and she reveals she's been watching him this whole time. Rei says it's clear that whenever she's not around, Takatora thinks he can do whatever he wants. He tries to justify himself, claiming, Arata is an irregular, but Rei claps back, saying that doesn't give him the right to beat someone half to death. Aoi rushes over to Arata's side to help. In his dazed state, Arata sees Rei and faintly recognizes her from the guild. Aoi activates her healing skill, and as his wounds begin to close, Arata finally opens his eyes to see her looking completely surprised. He tries to get up, but Aoi gently pushes him back down, warning him that his wounds will just tear open again if he moves. With his last bit of strength, Arata screams out his hatred for Takatora, vowing he'll never forgive him, before finally passing out. Takatora then tries to threaten the girls, telling them that if they heal Arata and take him in, they'll be going directly against the association's will. But Rei shuts him down, pointing out that the association hasn't actually issued an official arrest order yet. And since that's the case, she's going to formally request that Arata be placed under the Navy Guild's direct surveillance. Takatora tries to argue, but Rei cuts him off, stating that she and Aoi will be taking full responsibility for Arata from now on. Playing a different card, Takatora reminds Rei that he's also a Golden Slayer just like her. Rei asks him what his point is. He then slimy suggests that they should join forces to expand the guild. He even offers to use his ridiculously wealthy Goto Corporation to fund the whole thing. Rei doesn't miss a beat, telling the creep to not even think about coming any closer to her. Takatora is forced to back off, but smugly says she'll come running back to him once she realizes how awesome he is. Rei looks absolutely disgusted by his presence and tells Aoi to get Arata to the infirmary. She promises she'll be there soon. A short while later, Arata wakes up in the Navy Guild's infirmary. He immediately tries to bolt from the bed, but Iwai is there to stop him, telling him to sit tight because she has a ton of questions for him. Just then, Aoi gets a weird feeling, realizing Rei still hasn't shown up. She tells Arata to stay put and not even think about running off again before rushing out of the room. Iwai speeds down the hallway and finds Rei, who shamelessly claims she got lost trying to find the infirmary. Iwai grabs her hand, scolding her for getting lost in her own guild headquarters. No cap Aoi can't believe it. For someone who's so completely cracked in a fight, Rei is absolutely hopeless when it comes to directions. So the two of them head back to the infirmary. The second they walk in, Aoi immediately grills Arata, asking why he dipped from the guild last time, and on top of that, why he was throwing hands with Takatora. Arata stammers, trying to come up with an answer, but Rei cuts in, letting him know he could have protection. All he has to do is officially register with the guild. She adds that there are a ton of other perks that come with it too. She just can't wrap her head around why he's so hesitant to join up. But Arata stays completely silent. So Rei lays it on the line, telling him that no matter what, he's going to be under surveillance. She makes it clear, though, that they have zero interest in trying to control his life. After dropping all that, Rei asks if he's finally ready to talk. Arata opens his mouth, looking like he's about to say something. But then he clams up again, realizing that if he snitches, he might be putting his own brother in the line of fire, and he just can't risk that. Seeing that he's not going to crack, Rei decides to back off and tells them it's time to head out. Arata is just sitting there like, bro, what? But Aoi is totally hyped to hear that. Later that night, Arata finds himself at a restaurant with the girls of all things. He's low-key, shocked that he got out of that intense situation earlier so easily. Aoi points out that he's been fighting non-stop for days, and while being a workaholic is one thing, she says it's important for him to chill out and take a break sometimes. Honestly, that sounds amazing to Arata, who realizes he hasn't had a proper meal in what feels like an eternity. Right in front of him is a whole spread of incredible food and meat that he can just chow down on. He figures he'll just rest for a little while before getting back to the search for his brother, and Aoi encourages him to eat as much as he wants. Apparently, the guild is covering the entire bill. Arata's genuinely surprised by how generous these two are being. He realizes they've been helping him out over and over again, and he hasn't done a single thing for them in return. For a hot second, he wonders if it's even okay to accept, but then the smell of the food hits him, and he knows he can't hold back. Without another thought, Arata dives in, thanking them both for everything. As he finally enjoys a good meal, tears actually start rolling down his cheeks. No cap, it's been forever. The girls join in on the feast, and they look genuinely happy while they eat. Arata can't help but wonder if he'd ever have gotten a chance like this to just hang out with them, if he hadn't found that orb. After they've eaten for a bit, Rei decides to ask Arata a few questions. She tells him it's a two-way street, and he's free to ask her anything he wants as well. Her first question is simple. Has he been a slayer for long? Awai immediately starts teasing Arata from the side, telling him how lucky he is to get a one-on-one with Rei. Apparently, it's a huge deal that even guild members rarely get. Seizing the opportunity, Arata tells Rei he's got a question of his own. He asks her how the guild is able to track down magic fissures. He's trying to figure out a way to get to the next fissure before Takatora does. Rei reveals that they basically predict them the same way scientists predict earthquakes. She explains that they analyze a ton of factors like geomagnetism, gravity, and the patterns of past disturbances in the field. They combine all that data to get a rough location of where a new magic fissure will open. The only problem is, the accuracy is only about 60%. Meanwhile, Aoi spots Rei actually smiling at Arata, which is something she thinks is incredibly weird. All of a sudden, Rei gets an alert on her phone telling her that a magic fissure is about to appear near the LK building. It's set to open within the hour, and from their evaluation, it looks like it's going to be a silver-class fissure. The moment she sees this, Rei's expression turns serious, and she tells the others that they don't have any more time to be sitting around. Their dinner break is officially over. She's got a gut feeling that some seriously high-ranking monsters are about to spawn in the fissure, so she turns to Aoi, who's instantly on board, ready to roll without a second thought. Of course, Arete immediately says he's down to clown since Aoi is going to be there. Rei hears this and gives Arata the green light to head into the fissure, but she throws in a heavy warning he better not let his guard down for a second, cause this mission could easily turn around and wreck him. Arata just brushes it off, promising her he'll be on his toes the whole time. But deep down, Arata's hyping himself up, thinking that after all the grinding he's done, a silver rank fissure should be no problem. Aoi and Arata then head out, making a beeline for the exact spot where the fissure is predicted to spawn. And boom, right on schedule, the rift cracks open, and just as they expected, it's a silver rank fissure. Aoi can practically feel the hype radiating off Arata. She asks if he's doing okay, and Arata just tells her not to sweat it, claiming he can easily solo this thing. So Arata and Aoi dive headfirst into the fissure to start clearing it, and this time they materialize inside some ancient ruins. Arata finally has to ask what the deal is with these fissures anyway. Aoi explains that they're supposedly just dimensions where beasts live, but she adds that nobody knows for sure if that's the whole story. Aoi mentions that these fissures are supposed to collapse the moment the boss monster is defeated, but she adds she's pretty damn sure that some of them don't just disappear like they're supposed to. This revelation totally floors Arata. Arata is mid-sentence talking about how weirdly empty the place is when a sudden noise makes it clear they're not alone. Before they can even process what's happening, a level 25 sandworm erupts from the sand right underneath them. It gives them a terrifying look at its massive mouth packed with gnarly teeth before it dives straight back into the sand. Aoi tells Arata that their best bet is to listen super closely for any sign of the sandworm. Aoi focuses trying to pinpoint its location with just her hearing. And sure enough, she picks up on it. The sandworm is coming straight for them, right before it bursts out from the ground. But then she hits him with the bad news. There isn't just one. Bruh, they're completely surrounded and didn't even see it coming. Aoi is starting to freak out with no clue what to do, but Arata just tells her to take a breath and stay calm. Arata calmly places his hand on the ground and lets his suit flow out, spreading it thin to pick up on the tiniest vibrations in the sand. With this move, Arata's confident he can basically get a live map of every single sandworm tunneling toward them. And just as he planned, he immediately pinpoints where the next sandworm is about to pop up. The second the sandworm's head breaks through the surface, Arata's already in position, his shadow blade gleaming and ready. He lops the sandworm's head clean off and realizes that taking out the rest is going to be a total cakewalk. As long as he knows where they're going to pop up, they're basically just free, EXP waiting to be. Aoi is completely stunned by Arata's move, comparing his new technique to a game of high-stakes whack-a-mole. Arata admits that this is all he was thinking about while he was stuck recovering in the infirmary. He explains that he had a theory he figured he could sync up his senses with the suit, if he just spread it out thinly across a surface. Since he was literally stuck in a hospital bed and couldn't move, this mental training was all he could practice. Arata's just relieved it worked so perfectly on the first try, and it's dawning on him that he can use the suit for way more than just fighting. Awai is blown away by his big brain move and says that with this strategy, the sandworms are basically toast. So Arata keeps using the same strategy, and in what feels like no time at all, he's wiped out every last sandworm. Now only the Fisher's boss remains. But he warns Aoi that it's not over yet, and tells her not to get complacent. They finally reach what looks like a massive tomb, and Aoi immediately warns Arata to be ready because her instincts are telling her something is seriously off. She hasn't even finished the sentence when a massive stinger radiating a seriously menacing aura shoots up from the sand right behind them. Arata's first instinct is to think it's just another worm, but Aoi immediately shoots him down, telling him this is something else entirely. She warns him that if that thing's stinger even grazes them, they'll be begging for a quick end. Just then, the stinger bursts from the sand behind Arata, but my guy is built different this time. Before the stinger can even get close, he spins around and slices it clean off with his shadow blade. Arata scoffs, saying the beast is just wasting its breath, trying to hide because he's already spread his suit deep underground to track it. It's a classic move he's used before. Aoi is low-key impressed, giving him props for the big brain move of setting a trap in advance. She's got to admit Arata has seriously leveled up. Arata's feeling himself too, knowing he's way stronger, and with Aoi backing him up, he feels unstoppable. He figures with his current stats, and he could probably throw down with silver-ranked hunters, maybe even higher. But right then, the real boss of the fissure decides to show up. It finally reveals itself from beneath the sands, and it's a super pissed-off level 29 death scorpion. Even though Arata already clipped its stinger, this absolute unit is still a menace with its massive claws. The scorpion immediately goes on the offensive, swinging one of its giant pincers right at them. But Aoi jumps in like a champ, tanking the massive hit with her shield. Still, the scorpion's raw power is too much, and Aoi is clearly struggling to hold on, which Arata notices immediately. He knows he's got to do something fast before things get real ugly. He charges straight for the scorpion, but the monster spots him and swings its other claw, trying to cut him clean in half. But thanks to his cracked agility stat, he manages to dodge the attack by a hair. Suddenly, Arata finds himself floating in midair, lifted up by a water platform Aoi just created for him. She yells for him to use the high ground to get an edge on the terrifying scorpion, and Arata gives her a quick thanks. He doesn't waste the opportunity, launching off the platform and decapitating the scorpion in one clean slice, spraying green goo everywhere. Aoi runs over totally hyped and relieved that they actually managed to take the monster down. Arata is feeling pretty good. He tells her they can finally pack it up and head home, but that's when Aoi points out that something feels totally off about this whole situation. She brings up a good point: the dungeon cleared notification hasn't popped up, which has literally never happened before. Since they clapped the boss, the fissure should be collapsing by now, but it's not. It finally clicks for Arata what she's getting at, and he asks if it's even possible for a fissure to just not close. And right on cue, Arata feels this absolutely bone-chilling presence nearby. A voice cuts through the silence, coming from a creepy dude with long ears sitting nearby, radiating a dark purple aura like a bad omen. Looking like some kind of demon, the guy casually says how much fun it was watching them fight the scorpion. Arata and Aoi are completely stunned to see another magic beast, especially since they already killed the fisher's boss. What really messes with their heads, though, is the fact that this thing can actually freaking talk. The dude then brags about how he loves controlling beasts to hunt down slayers. That's when it dawns on Aoi this guy was the puppet master pulling the scorpion's strings the whole time. A monster controlling a boss monster. That's a concept so wild, the magic beast then decides it's time for a little show and tell to demonstrate what he can do. He glances at the dead scorpion's parts, and with a flick of his wrist, he reanimates them, telling the creature to fight until there's nothing left. The horrifying realization hits Arata. This guy can control monsters even after they've been chopped into pieces. The reanimated scorpion charges at them, forcing them to frantically blast it with long-range attacks to try and break it apart for good. The demon dude looks totally unimpressed by the performance. He then gives them a chilling suggestion: maybe they should become his new puppets instead. Aoi's mind is racing, trying to figure out what kind of final boss they've stumbled upon. Then with a snap of his fingers, the terrifying dude rips open a whole new fissure He invites them inside, promising them a grand welcome if they dare to follow. Arata is just stunned. He can't believe they've run into a fissure opening up inside of another fissure. It clicks for Arata: this dude is hijacking fissures and collecting bosses. Aoi confirms his fears, telling him that the portal in front of them It looks like this is the main headquarters. This particular fissure is giving off way more dangerous vibes than any they've encountered before. But AoE realizes that to clear the original fissure, they've got to go inside and take down the big boss himself. It finally hits them that the real fight is just getting started. Even though they're low-key terrified, the two of them step into the fissure. The place looks like a whole castle, and Arata wonders if it's connected to the human world, all while something is watching them from the shadows above. And they have no clue. Suddenly, the magical beast from above dives straight at Arata, its sword swinging down to take his head off. But Arata whips around just in the nick of time, firing his cannon and taking the beast out for good. He literally blows a massive hole right through its chest. Just then they see that they're completely surrounded by a massive horde of monsters, and they all look like boss-level threats. And it's obvious they're all being controlled by the main dude. Arata can't believe how shameless this guy is, turning other monsters into his personal puppets. Aoi tells Arata that she thinks they're strong enough to wipe out all of these monsters. Arata pulls out his sword and starts slicing through them, but for every one he cuts down, another takes its place. As they start to feel their stamina drain, they realize they have to stop wasting time on these boss-class minions. Their only real target is the puppet master himself. Aoi points out the direction they need to go, and the two of them make a break for it with all the puppets chasing right behind them. They finally make it to the throne room, where the main villain is just sitting there waiting for them. But just because they reached him doesn't mean it's over. He's got these two terrifying knights by his side, both holding absolutely gigantic swords. The dude smugly tells them that while they might have cleared out a bunch of his puppets, he's got way more where that came from. Aoi claps back, telling him they're just gonna kill him instead, because once he's gone, all his so-called puppets will be gone too. The villain just laughs in their faces. He tells them they can talk a big game, but to him, they're nothing more than a couple of insects. Arata then asks him what the whole point of gathering all these magical beasts is, and the guy just says it's because he thinks it's fun. He thinks turning other powerful creatures into his puppets and controlling them is the greatest feeling in the world. He then says humans are no different, which is why he's dead set on making Arata and Aoi his next puppets. In his mind, since he's the strongest one here, it's his natural right to prey on anyone weaker than him. Arata decides it's time to ask him the most important question. He needs to know if there's any way to turn a human who's been transformed into a magic beast back into their normal self. Aoi is completely stunned that he would ask that, but the big bad demon instantly puts two and two together, realizing there must be someone Arata desperately wants to save. Arata furiously demands an answer, and the dude casually says he might be willing to tell him. That is, if Arata can actually defeat him. Right then, the villain unleashes his power, which turns out to be blood manipulation. Shards of blood sharp as knives shoot toward Arata, who manages to block most of them with his own power. But a few of them still manage to slice into him. While Arata's still reeling from the blood attack, one of the knights closes in on him, swinging its massive sword. It's about to be game over, but Aoi, as always, comes to his rescue, throwing up a shield to block the knight's devastating blow. But pulling off that move alone puts a massive strain on Aoi's body. Arata rushes to her side to check on her, but she just tells him she's fine, even though it's obvious she's really not. Aoi then tells Arata to go finish off the demon while she holds off the two knights. Arata promises he'll end this quickly and charges the demon fueled by a new determination. He absolutely refuses to let Aoi get hurt, even one more time, model. Barely able to move, Aoi pops a quick healing spell on herself, needing every last bit of strength to handle these knights and get back to Arata. Aoi knows her only shot is to take out all these monsters in one go, and there's only one skill that's up for the job. She pours every last ounce of her power into the one move she's banking on, charging up and unleashing a massive energy blast. The beam completely shreds the knights into pieces. But of course, the knights just start putting themselves back together again. Aoi isn't even surprised. She low-key expected some crap like this to happen. Aoi braces herself, ready to throw down with whatever dregs of power she's got left in the tank. Meanwhile, as Arata rushes the big bad, the demon notices our MC is stopping his own bleeding by mixing soot and blood to make it clot. The demon thinks this is a pretty slick trick, and he cracks a smile, asking Arata if he's from the same world he is. Arata is completely floored by this, and figures out the dude somehow knows about his unique skill. Instead of spilling the beans, the demon just suggests they cut the chit-chat and finish their fight. He says he wants to see which one is stronger, his blood or Arata's weird soot powers. The demon hurls a wave of blood at Arata, but our boy just evaporates it with his burst cannon, so the demon has to try a new tactic. He summons a blood whip and lashes it out at Arata, waiting to see how he's going to counter this one. Arata instantly slices it apart with his shadow blade, and honestly, seeing this level of skill gets the demon totally hyped. He keeps spamming the blood whip attack, but Arata just keeps parrying it. The demon starts teasing him. He eggs Arata on telling him to stop holding back and unleash his full power. Arata, however, knows exactly what's up. The demon's just trying to wear him down in a battle of attrition. The demon goes back to mocking Arata, telling him what a boring-ass fighter he is. Then he crosses a major line telling Arata that once he's done with him, he might just go after Aoi next. Without missing a beat, the demon fires a blood attack directly at Aoi, who's already struggling against the knights. Arata whips around and screams Aoi's name, but in that exact moment he feels a blood spear impale him straight through the back. He's totally stunned by the cheap shot coughing up blood, before crashing to the ground while the demon mocks him for looking away mid-battle. The demon then gets ready to turn Arata into his puppet, just like he said he would, aiming a blood spike to finish the job. But somehow, Aoi manages to dive in front of Arata, protecting him once again. The demon is pissed that Aoi is wrecking his fun, but she just admits that he must be pretty good to have actually taken Arata down. Instead of wasting breath arguing, Aoi secretly starts pouring her healing power into Arata. Once the demon figures it out, he starts laying into Aoi, telling her Arata died because he was trying to save her. He tells her she can stop healing him, since there's no point. The demon's words hit her like a freight train. The idea that she's why Arata died makes her flash back. She remembers watching a monster kill her sister Minato right before her eyes, and Aoi almost loses herself to the memory. But she forces herself to stay calm. She knows the demon is just running his mouth trying to get into her head. Aoi figures out all she has to do is buy some time until Arata is back on his feet. Because no cap, Aoi is not about to give up on Arata. So, the demon decides to play with them both, whipping his blood lash at Aoi, but she just deflects the attack with her water shield. Seeing that she uses water attributes makes the demon laugh out loud. He keeps up the assault, but Aoi just blocks every single thing he throws at her. She tells him straight up that her water power exists precisely to stop the spilling of blood. It turns out her water attribute has the unique property of being able to blend with anything. That's exactly why her power is so clutch for a support role. She's been grinding like crazy, putting in overtime just to master her support abilities. The demon finally puts two and two together, realizing Aoi is weakening his attacks by diluting his blood with her water. He doesn't really seem to care though, and just figures he will have to bleed a little more to get the job done. Aoi knows that if this keeps up, she'll eventually get overwhelmed by the demon's sheer volume of power. But right on cue, Arata finally regains consciousness, and Aoi doesn't waste a second passing him a bubble of water. She tells him to combo the water bubble with soot to completely change the game, and Arata doesn't hesitate, but the demon just scoffs at them. He tells them that it doesn't matter what they try, they have absolutely zero chance of winning. The demon cracks his blood whip like he always does, but this time Arata meets him head-on with soot supercharged by water particles. The new attack straight up eats his blood magic, leaving the demon completely shook. Little did he know, water is the ultimate chameleon and an insane power amplifier. Aoi decides to tag out, telling Arata it's all on him now to take this monster down. Arata doesn't waste a single second, immediately charging straight towards the demon. Whipping out his shadow blade, he carves a deep slash right across the demon's chest. Blood explodes everywhere, and the demon actually feels the full force of Arata's attack. He smashes into the floor, clutching his chest in pure agony. He has to admit Arata is built different, being the very first human to ever make him feel pain. The demon can't wrap his head around it. He's always the one with the upper hand, but the tables were about to be flipped upside down. The demon, whose name is Valgard, suddenly gets a flashback to the moment he was about to leave his own domain. His subordinate had begged him not to go, but he was stubborn, and before he left, the guy warned him that the one thing he always overlooked would come back to bite him in the ass. Valgard is floored that everything is happening exactly like his subordinate said it would. Arata immediately demands that Valgard teach him how to turn magic beasts back into people. But Valgard just laughs in his face, saying he only promised to talk if Arata actually won. Arata is absolutely furious and screams at him, demanding to know how he can turn his brother back into a human. Valgard takes this dramatic deep breath, like he's about to reveal a huge secret, but then just flips the switch and starts cackling at him. He tells him it's impossible. Valgard claims there's no way in hell for a human to go back to normal, once they've been transformed into a magic beast. The color completely drains from Arata's face, as shock and despair wash over him. Valgard uses this moment to mock him one last time, before he dies, turning into a pile of dust right in front of him. Arata's level skyrockets from 15 to 21, but he just stands there totally frozen. Aoi walks up behind him, gently asking if he's alright. Right then, an item drops, and Aoi quickly picks it up, getting Arata's attention. This is wild because an item has literally never dropped after one of their fights before. Aoi tells Arata he might get a special skill from it. She passes it to him, and when he grabs it, he confirms it's a skill. Vassalization. Arata recognizes it as the same cracked skill Valgard was using, but he couldn't care less about it right now. The system explains that the skill lets him bring any dead thing back to life as a loyal puppet he can control. But there's a catch. The resurrected vassals are just empty shells, losing all their past abilities and only existing to obey their master's commands. After the fissure vanishes, Arata and Aoi find themselves back in the real world. Arata doesn't look like a winner at all. In fact, he looks like he just lost everything. What Valgard said just keeps replaying in his head, but he refuses to believe there's no way out of this nightmare. Aoi can tell he's spiraling and tells him to take a breath, promising that they'll figure something out together. Arata then admits that even if he can't turn his brother completely human again, he's still determined to save him no matter what. Once they got back to the guild, Aoi gave Rei the full report on everything that went down. Rei feels terrible for Arata and connects the dots, figuring out that his power comes from the same dark source as Valgard's. Aoi then suggests a risky plan: they capture Arata's brother and put him under constant surveillance. Aoi makes it clear to Rei that Arata would never ever hurt innocent people, even if he shares his power with magic beasts. Aoi promises Rei she knows this for a fact from fighting by his side, and says if it ever came down to it, she would be the one to stop Arata herself, no hesitation. Seeing how dead serious Aoi is, Rei agrees to consider it, but tells her to give Arata some space to rest for now. She tells Aoi she'll talk to the association about her proposition. Meanwhile, Arata goes back to his old empty house. This whole apartment is looking like an absolute rat's den. No cap, it feels like no human has ever even stepped in. Arata wanders through the house, the heavy truth finally sinking in. His brother might be gone for good. Just as his thoughts are consumed by his missing brother, a crack in reality, a fissure tears open right in front of him, leaving Arata totally shook. I mean, who wouldn't be? A random portal just opened up inside his house. The fact that it spawned in his room sparks a wild thought. Could his brother be on the other side? He cautiously steps through the fissure, and the world inside is weirdly familiar, giving him major déjà vu. He doesn't overthink it. His first instinct is to just start exploring, but after walking for a few minutes, he can't shake the feeling that it's way too quiet. He eventually finds a spot where the floor looks like it was absolutely wrecked by some insane power, and he heads for a nearby door. But when he tries to push it open, no dice. It's barred shut by a piece of wood. He's got no time for that, so he whips out his blade and straight up demolishes the door, stepping into the room to find his brother. But this isn't the brother he knows. He's been warped into a level 38 boss, and it's like he doesn't even recognize Arata. Arata, on the other hand, just breaks down, tears streaming down his face, because he's finally found him. He tries to tell his brother how long he's been searching, that he never imagined he'd find him hiding out in a place like this. Arata tries to keep it casual, calling out to the beast, like he's still his big bro, begging him to just come home. But his brother ain't listening. He just spins around and blasts Arata with an energy wave that sends him flying into a wall. Arata has zero desire to fight his own flesh and blood, desperately trying to get through to him that it's really him. When his brother lunges again, Arata pulls a slick move, leaping onto his shoulder to try and talk some sense into the guy. He was hoping to break through the monster mode, but things just get worse when he gets swatted away like a fly. Crashing to the ground, Arata can't help but wonder if his brother is truly lost, a magic beast for good. Then it hits him, the vassalization skill he copped after taking down Valgard. The catch, though, is a gut punch to use. His brother has to be dead. While he's frozen trying to process this impossible choice, his brother slams him again. Arata hits the floor and just stays there. He's drowning in guilt, feeling like he's the one who failed to save his brother. The beast rushes in for the final blow, but right as he's about to end Arata, a powerful water attack slams into him out of nowhere. The blast sends his brother careening to the ground. Arata scrambles back to his feet, totally stunned, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. That's when he hears Takatora's smug voice behind him, calling him a pathetic loser. Takatora strolls in like he's the main character, claiming he's there to rescue Arata. But Arata's not having it. He immediately jumps between the dude and his brother, telling him to back the hell off. Takatora is seriously pissed that Arata is going out of his way to protect a magic beast. But then the light bulb goes off, and he realizes that Magic Beast is Arata's brother. Arata demands to know what Takatora is even doing there. Takatora doesn't even try to hide it, admitting he's been keeping tabs on Arata's every move. He lays it out plain and simple: as long as Arata's with the Navy Guild, nothing he does is a secret. Acting on pure instinct to protect his brother, Arata summons his Shadow Blade. Takatora just smirks and unleashes his own Ice Blade, saying now he's got the perfect excuse to kill Arata with no witnesses. Since Arata chose to side with a magic beast, Takatora gloats that he's going to end him all in the name of so-called justice. Blinded by rage, Arata swings at Takatora, but his attack is blocked, like it was child's play. Takatora mocks him, asking if he really thinks he has what it takes to protect that monster. Arata fires back, screaming that his brother is not a magic beast. With that, Takatora launches a long-range attack that homes in on Arata's brother. Worried sick, Arata's head whips around to check if his brother's okay, and Takatora immediately clowns him for looking away. In the middle of a fight, no less. Absolutely furious, Arata tries to cut Takatora down, but the guy deflects every single one of his attacks with ease, all while telling him not to get so cocky. Takatora just laughs, telling Arata he's gonna slice them both up. Arata gets pushed back, but he won't back down. He keeps defending his brother, insisting over and over that he's not a monster. With every memory they ever shared fueling him, Arata is ready to defend his brother day and night. You can see it in his eyes, he's absolutely determined to protect his family. He rushes Takatora again, but this time his attack hits different, packing way more power. Takatora actually feels the intense heat from the blow, forcing him to leap backward to safety. But of course, Takatora, with zero chill, just keeps mocking Arata for being dirt poor. He tells Arata it's game over for him and his family, and Arata has no idea what he's talking about. Then Takatora drops a bomb, sneering about 2 other magic beasts he took care of, and he's talking about Arata's parents. He straight up admits he murdered them, and feels nothing, even bragging that he used them to farm experience points. That's the last straw. Arata snaps and unleashes a terrifying aura, but Takatora isn't even a little concerned. The villain just coldly informs Arata that mercy is completely off the table. Takatora then launches his deadly ice technique straight at our hero. A 3-headed ice serpent slithers toward him, and Arata steels himself for the clash. He swings his sword with everything he has, managing to chop off 2 of the heads, but one of them gets through. Takatora admits Arata's gotten stronger, but it's still not enough, as the last head flies right at him. In that split second, Arata knows he isn't nearly fast enough to dodge the attack. But just as he's about to get wrecked, his brother dives in front of him, smashing the last ice head to bits. Arata is in total shock, but his brother doesn't stop there. He immediately charges Takatora and lands a massive hit. The blow sends Takatora flying clear across the room into a wall, leaving Arata completely stunned. He can only wonder if his brother somehow knows who the real enemy is. Takatora is now face to face with Arata's monstrous brother, and for the first time, even Takatora looks surprised by what's going down. He can't believe what he's seeing. He refuses to accept that a beast would protect a human. But instead of thinking about it too hard, Takatora just decides he's going to kill both Arata and his brother. Arata realizes their only chance is to somehow restrict Takatora's movements. Remembering his water bubble trick, he decides to try something similar, slamming his hand on the ground and releasing a cloud of soot. Takatora just assumes it's another weak smokescreen like the last one. He tries to counter it with his water powers, but before he realizes what's happening, the soot merges with the water, creating a thick, sticky fluid. Takatora finds himself completely trapped in the goo, and Arata is thrilled that his crazy plan actually worked, seeing the perfect chance to strike. He leaps forward to finish the job, but before he can even get close, Takatora effortlessly disperses the sticky fluid. Takatora readies his blade to cut Arata down, but in a flash, his brother appears right behind him. Before he can even react, Arata's brother claps his hands together, catching Takatora in the middle and causing a massive explosion. Arata is both shocked and hyped, thinking his brother actually managed to defeat that monster. He's just about to breathe a sigh of relief when he sees his brother start coughing up blood. Arata's face twists in horror as Takatora emerges from the shadows without a scratch and slices through his brother like he's made of tissue paper. Arata screams, but it's already over. Takatora's attack is so devastating it shreds his brother all the way down to his soul. He collapses to his knees as his brother turns to dust right in front of him, his mind refusing to accept what just happened. It doesn't become real until the system notification pops up, announcing that the fissure has been cleared. Arata is back in his room weeping on the floor, as Takatora stands over him, reminding him that he told him not to get cocky. He just keeps rubbing it and mocking Arata by saying that learning one new skill doesn't mean you can actually win. Through his tears, Arata mutters a single chilling promise, telling Takatora, "I'm going to kill you." With tears still streaming down his face, Arata slowly gets to his feet, as a dark, terrifying aura begins to swirl around him. The entire room is consumed by shadows, and even Takatora can feel the shift in the air. Still, he's not scared. This isn't the first time Arata's tried to act tough, and he's always put him back in his place. Takatora scoffs, saying he's going to end this all with a single strike, but before he can even twitch a muscle, Takatora suddenly finds himself completely engulfed by a storm of black soot. Before Takatora can even blink, Arata unleashes a swing so monstrous it sends him flying right out of the room. Takatora hits the deck, every inch of him screaming in agony, and he can't wrap his head around how he's getting clapped by Arata. Arata strolls over, his voice dripping with ice, telling him that killing him once will never be enough to satisfy his rage. It's hitting Takatora that he's low-key getting terrified by the same guy he wrote off as a total weakling. The irony is real, but nah, he forces himself up, dead set on finishing Arata. He goes all out, popping his ultimate attack. This time around though, Arata just straight up devours the attack with his shadow power like it's a light snack. The next thing Takatora knows, he's pinned to the floor by a storm of Arata's shadowy blades and weapons. Bruh, or Arata doesn't even look like himself anymore, as he approaches asking if Takatora has had enough of a beating yet. Real fear starts to sink in, and Takatora knows he needs to bounce, but that just pisses Arata off even more. So he erupts with this insane aura that completely knocks Takatora on his ass, and he moves in to deliver the final blow. But then Aoi's shield materializes over Takatora, blocking the hit. She appears on the scene, declaring there's no way in hell she's letting him touch Takatora. Aoi can feel the absolutely ridiculous amount of power just rolling off Arata's aura. Her barrier is nowhere near enough, as Arata's shadow blade just shatters right through it like glass. The attack slices into Aoi's arm, sending a wave of searing pain right through her. Aoi is just left wondering what kind of monster power Arata has locked up inside him. Even though she knows she's completely outmatched, she gets back on her feet, ready to defend Takatora and stop Arata from killing him. Aoi is fully aware that she doesn't stand a ghost of a chance against Arata in this state. She's terrified that if Arata cranks his aura up anymore, things are going to get apocalyptic real quick. Lying there all busted up, Takatora actually starts taunting them, saying the association will step in and clean up their mess. Aoi, on the other hand, is just desperately trying to figure out how to snap Arata back to his normal self. But she can't stop him. Arata just pumps more of that destructive aura into the area, and it starts tearing down the buildings around them. From her office, Rei is watching the whole disaster unfold on her screen. She decides it's time to make a house call and put Arata on ice. Meanwhile, at the Jade Sky Guild, Takudo has also gotten word about Arata's rampage. He figures it's his turn to step up and get this out-of-control kid off the streets. Back on the scene, Arata keeps flooding the area with his overwhelming power. He locks his sights on Aoi, and right as he's about to finish her, Rei appears out of nowhere, blocking his attack with her own power, and apologizes to Aoi for being late to the party. Rei gently sets Aoi down, telling her to just chill and let her handle Arata from here. Rei immediately figures out that something major must have happened to trigger Arata's insane power and rage. It's the only explanation for why he's so completely off the rails. And just at that moment, Takuto makes his grand entrance. He looks absolutely pumped to throw down with Arata, but Rei immediately tries to shut that down. Takuto just reveals that the association doesn't exactly see things the same way they do. Hearing this, Rei demands to know what the association is planning, but he completely dodges the question. Takuto then comments on how both Rei and Aoi seem to have gotten pretty attached to Arata. Rei fires back, arguing that she's only doing what any responsible guildmaster would. While these two are busy bickering, Arata sees an opening and lunges at Takuto from behind. Rei screams a warning, but Takuto doesn't even flinch. He looks completely unfazed. Arata swings his sword like a maniac to slice him up, but suddenly Takuto's entire body dissolves into a flurry of petals. This move completely blows Rei's mind, but before anyone can react, Takuto reappears and hits Arata with his ethereal dance skill, knocking him flat. Rei is totally shocked, as she never expected Takuto's skill could take down a berserk Arata so easily. Rei doesn't waste a second and immediately makes her stance clear. She tells Takuto straight up that she won't allow him to kill Arata if that's his game plan. Takuto just grins and assures Rei that he has zero intention of actually killing the kid. Takuto admits he's not about to just off some guy who's a total enigma. Right on cue, Arata struggles back to his feet, lets out a primal roar, and immediately starts juicing up with raw power. But Takuto isn't even surprised. He low-key suspected Arata was siphoning energy from magic beasts the whole time. Arata locks onto Takuto and tries to spawn a whole armory's worth of weapons to finish him, but his opponent just stands there unbothered. Takuto's actually kind of impressed. At the same time though, he can tell Arata has zero control over this new power. It's just going completely berserk. Takuto glances at Rei, signaling that it's time to finally put Arata down for the count, but Rei's more worried about what the association is planning. He doesn't have an answer for her. Instead, his whole body erupts in a green aura as he prepares to take Arata out. Before Arata can even process what's happening, Takuto's power has him completely restrained. Just as Rei starts to panic, Takuto reassures her that Arata isn't dead. He's just taking a nap. With that, Takuto disappears, taking Arata's unconscious body with him. After they're gone, Ray can't shake the feeling that something terrible is about to happen to Arata at the association. Just then, Ai finally returns to the scene after she finished helping civilians get to safety. She's completely stunned when she looks around and can't find any trace of Arata. Ray can barely bring herself to explain that Arata's been taken. When Arata finally comes to, he finds himself completely tied up. He's still trying to figure out where the hell he is when some psycho-looking dude with a whip shows up smiling like a total creep. The guy tells Arata that he's just getting started. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Takatora is absolutely seething that Arata got away. He vows that one day he'll crush him and the Heavenly Five so he can finally become the undisputed top dog. Even though he's salty that he didn't get to kill Arata himself, he's also low-key relieved. He knows Arata is about to face some next-level punishment from the association, and that's good enough for him. Later, Ray manages to visit Arata in a holding cell where it's clear he's being tortured. She tries to get him to talk, hoping to make things easier on him, but Arata's completely shut down. He tells her flat out that he couldn't care less what happens to him anymore. Right in the middle of their conversation, Ray gets an emergency alert. 3 Silver Slayers have gone missing inside a rift. To make matters worse, Wee has already dived in to attempt a rescue. Ray is shocked since AY is supposed to be on medical leave and recovering. She can't help but think about how Aoi is just built different, constantly pushing herself to the absolute brink. The girl has zero chill and never knows when to take a break. Realizing how bad the situation must be, she concludes Aoi is in some serious danger, backtracking a bit to Slayer's headquarters. Dojo gets on a call with the Golden Slayer, starting with an apology for bothering them during their busy schedules. He cuts straight to the point, letting them know they're in the middle of a major crisis. Dojo doesn't beat around the bush and informs them that they've taken Arata into custody. Ryo is completely floored, telling the president that Arata isn't some villain. He argues they can't just lock the kid up without solid evidence, or at least a proper hearing. Dojo lists off the charges, which include fighting out of control and causing a massive amount of destruction to the city. He then adds that worst of all, Arata broke association rules and completely destroyed the public's trust in them. He continues explaining that they believe Arata's unknown power source is connected to the Magai, and no cap many Slayers are now demanding that they just eliminate him for good. Ryo and Ray are horrified to hear this, and Ray immediately says that she'll take full responsibility for Arata. She argues that since she's his supervisor in the Navy Guild, this whole mess is on her. Dojo then tells them their plan is to figure out Arata's true nature and grill him about any potential ties to the Magai. He points out that Arata's connection might be their only shot at getting to the truth. The second Shion hears this, it all clicks. She immediately figures out they've assigned a professional interrogator to his case, and can't help but feel sorry for the poor guy. Dojo finishes the call by telling the Gold Slayers to stay on high alert because they're anticipating some unusual moves from the Manhwa. It wasn't until after the call ended that Ray truly realized just how much crap Arata was in. Meanwhile, deep in the underground prison for first-class violators, the Slayer's Inquisitor Ikazu Kamigari is having the time of his life with his brand new plaything Arata. He gets right in Arata's face, demanding he spill every single secret about the Magai, because from this moment on, he's done playing nice. Kamigari literally threatens to whip Arata so hard the flesh will peel right off his bones. Even with his face looking like a smashed-up pumpkin, Arata swears to the guy that he doesn't know a thing. This just makes Kamigari even more ticked off, and he winds up his whip, but right before he can land the hit, Ray busts into the room screaming for him to back off. She announces who she is and orders Kamigari to immediately stop the interrogation. Kamigari is genuinely surprised to see someone of her rank slumming it in a grimy place like this. He immediately asks Ray if she even has the authority to be there. Without missing a beat, Ray lies straight to his face, telling him she's got all the clearance she needs. She then tells Kamigari to get lost because she needs to have a private conversation with Arata. Kamigari bounces, but not before warning Ray not to pull any funny business. Once Kamigari is gone, Ray comments on how messed up Arata looks and asks him if he can even remember transforming. You know, before he went on a total rampage? Arata's completely floored by this, since the last thing he recalls is throwing down with Takatora, right after the dude murdered his brother. But after that, it's all a total blank. Ray explains that it was actually Aoi who jumped in and stopped him from finishing Takatora off for good. Arata is absolutely shook by this news, and Ray drops another bomb on him. Aoi got caught in the crossfire. She's currently in the medbay getting patched up. The weight of this hits Arata like a truck, and he just accepts it. He figures that he totally deserves everything that's happening to him right now. He feels like he's got nothing left to lose anyway, having been forced to watch his brother, the one person he cared about, get taken out right in front of him, and he was completely powerless to stop it. As they're talking, an alert comes in about Aoi. She just charged into the rift for a rescue mission. Hearing this, Arata freaks out and asks Rei what the hell just happened. Rei lays it out. They lost contact with a bunch of Silver Slayers, and Aoi just forced her way into the rift to save them, even though she's nowhere near 100% recovered. Rei then makes up her mind, saying she's going to have a chat with Dojo about this. Arata's about to spiral, but Rei puts a hand on his shoulder, telling him that you can't change what's already happened. But as long as he's still got the power of a Slayer, there's something that only he can do. In a defeated whisper, Arata says he has nothing left. But Rei tells him that she can't really judge if he's a good guy or a bad guy. But she sensed something from him. Rei then snaps Arata's restraints, telling him that she's trusting her gut on this one. And that's exactly why she's setting him free. But right on cue, Kamigari storms back into the room, telling Rei he just got confirmation. She never had permission, which means she was lying through her teeth. Kamigari gets all high and mighty, telling Rei that she may be a guildmaster, but since she lied to protect a criminal, he's not about to show her any mercy. With a sick grin, Kamigari pulls out his whip and starts walking toward Rei. He gloats that the magnetic field in this area totally messes with skill activation. On top of that, the whip he's holding breaks the sound barrier, which basically means he's holding all the winning cards right now. After all, Rei is pretty much useless without her special abilities. Kamigari is getting way too excited, talking about how much he loves his job, because he never dreamed he'd get a chance to rough up a legendary Golden Slayer. He lunges at Rei, ready to land a devastating blow, but she effortlessly boots him in the chest, basically rearranging his internal organs and leaving him in total shock. Rei just calmly informs the dude that she'll be getting that official permission after she's done here. Suddenly, Rei gets another message. No one is available to go help Aoi. Rei turns her attention back to Arata. She tells him that crying about the past isn't going to fix anything, but the decisions he makes right now in this very moment will define who he really is. That line just hits different for Arata, and he stops to really think about it. He knows he has nothing left for himself, but he still has friends who fought right alongside him, and that realization sparks something inside him. He decides then and there that he's never ever going to lose someone he cares about again. With a newfound fire in his eyes, Arata tells Rei he's going to save Aoi, no matter what it takes. Rei is thrilled to hear it, telling him they all better make it back alive so they can grab some barbecue afterwards. With his purpose clear, Arata takes off sprinting to find a way out of the building. Out of nowhere, he runs straight into a trio of officials ready to slap the cuffs on him. Arata's completely thrown for a loop, having zero idea how to handle this mess. But before he can even think, Ryo shows up totally clowning on Arata, saying he heard he got locked up and had to come see it for himself. Ryo then gets serious, asking Arata what his game plan is now that he's a free man. Arata just says he's got to do what he's got to do. And when Ryo asks if he means that, brother, he mentioned Arata shuts it down. Nah, he says, I just have to go save my comrade. Arata tells Ryo straight up that as long as he can pull this off, he couldn't care less what happens to himself, which Loki shocks Ryo. In that moment, he sees that same fire, that same reckless drive is still burning inside Arata. That's it. Ryo decides he's taking the heat for this one. He tells the officials not to sweat it, he'll be keeping Arata on a short leash. To really seal the deal, he tells them to report back to Dojo and let him know that Ryo's got this under control. With that settled, Ryo looks at Arata and says it's time to bounce. Arata is just staring at Ryo, completely blown away by his swagger, and takes off after him without a second thought. A little later, they arrive at the rift, and Ryo asks Arata what he was on about when he said his comrades were in danger. Arata explains that a bunch of Slayers just went radio silent, which wigs Ryo out because the rift should have closed by now. I mean, it's just supposed to be a silver-class fissure, nothing crazy. The second he hears this, Arata's stomach drops as he starts panicking about what could have happened to Aoi. Without wasting a second, the two of them dive headfirst into the fissure. Once inside, they find themselves in some kind of forest-type rift. But Ryo immediately clocks that most of the area has already been cleared out. That can only mean one thing: the boss is the only enemy left standing. Arata immediately drops to his knees, activating his suit and telling Ryo he's going to scan for it. Ryo's legit surprised to hear that Arata now has an enemy detection skill. My boy has seriously leveled up. Right as Arata's in the zone, a monster comes flying straight at them. But Ryo, built different, just casually swats the thing away with a fiery backhand, turning it to ash. Another monster pops out from the right, gunning for Arata, who's getting seriously pissed that these things keep interrupting his search. Showing absolutely zero chill, he slices the monster down in an instant. Ryo sees this and can't help but be impressed. It's proof that Arata's a whole different beast than the last time they met. Arata gets back to his search, and after a few moments, he tells Ryo he's sensing something seriously off. He warns Ryo to stay on his toes, and right on cue, one of the missing Silver Slayers stumbles out of the woods. Arata's face lights up seeing her, At least one of them made it out, even if she looks like she's been through a blender. They bolt over to her asking what the hell went down. She's barely getting the words out, explaining that a slayer turned into a magic beast, when another one of the transformed slayers lunges out and sinks its teeth into her. Both Rio and Arata just freeze, trying to process what they just witnessed. The girl starts to choke, and then this insane dark aura explodes from her body, twisting her form. Arata is bugging out as he watches the girl morph into a magic beast right before his eyes. No cap. Rio says, "We're dealing with an infectious type. This is bad. Really bad." The newly transformed slayer charges Arata, aiming to tear him apart, but our boy finds himself unable to fight back. His hand starts trembling because when he looks at her, all he can see is his brother's face staring back. Rio sees him hesitating and screams, "What are you doing?" as Arata nearly gets his head taken clean off. In the nick of time, Rio yanks him out of the way, saving his life. He asks Arata if he's okay, but the poor guy is shaking so hard that sweat is pouring off him. Arata stammers that he can't bring himself to kill people, but Rio snaps back, telling him that woman isn't human anymore. The two monsters charge them again, so Rio takes matters into his own hands, obliterating them both with a single blazing punch. After the dust settles, Rio tells Arata that this whole nightmare is probably the boss's handiwork. So, this thing basically turns people into magic beasts, and then those beasts go around infecting even more humans. Arata tries to say something, but Rio cuts him off, saying the people who got infected probably hesitated just like him, and now look where they are. It finally clicks for Rio why so many slayers got totally wiped out. Rio makes it crystal clear to Arata that if even one of these infected beasts escapes the fissure, it's going to be a full-blown catastrophe. He promises him the damage will be way worse than anything a cursed soul could ever cook up. That's why they have absolutely no choice but to end them all inside the fissure. Just then, a completely overwhelming presence starts radiating from the distance. And with it comes the boss monster, this ugly thing with a messed up head and way too many teeth. At the exact same moment, Aoi appears beside them, and Arata's face just lights up because he thinks she's finally safe. But then, out of nowhere, a dark aura explodes from her body, making her scream out in agony. She collapses, and a panicked Arata rushes over yelling for someone to hit Aoi with some healing magic. Aoi, however, tells him it's completely useless, and even apologizes for failing to protect everyone. Turns out Aoi got herself bitten on the arm, and you can already see the infection taking hold. As she slowly starts to transform, she tells Arata she's so glad she met him even for a short time. Then she tells him she's leaving everything in his hands now. Arata just screams in pure horror, begging Aoi not to turn into a magic beast. He's still clinging to the delusional hope that they can somehow save her. But Aoi grabs his hands, telling him that from this moment on, he needs to start believing in himself. She tells him she's got 100% confidence that he'll become an amazing slayer who saves a ton of people. After saying her piece, Aoi hits the ground hard, and her final words just echo in Arata's head, completely shattering him. He lets out a gut-wrenching scream, and Rio just turns to tell him that everyone who was bitten has already turned. Right on cue, the boss charges at Rio, but he's built different and manages to block the attack with his arms. Arata, on the other hand, is just frozen watching Aoi's transformation in horror and wondering why the hell it won't stop. I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that Aoi is already dead. But Arata, being Arata, starts racking his brain, totally convinced there has to be some way to reverse the transformation. He's deep in thought when Aoi's body suddenly lurches to its feet like some kind of zombie. She looks totally different. But our boy Arata still isn't ready to accept the reality of what's staring him in the face. While still wrestling with the boss, Rio screams at Arata that the thing in front of him is a magic beast, now, not Aoi. He tells him to forget whatever feelings he has. Rio orders Arata to take her down, because once a human turns into one of those things, there's absolutely no coming back. And just as Rio warned, the Aoi beast lunges right at Arata, throwing a wild punch. Arata tries to fight back, but he just can't bring himself to do it. So instead of fighting, he just leaps backward to dodge the strike. Arata cries out in fear, telling Rio he has no way of fighting her, so Rio decides to disengage from the boss. His plan is to put Aoi down himself. However, Arata jumps in his way, arguing that Aoi is his only comrade, and he just can't bring himself to kill her. Rio yells at him to get a grip and fight back because he's gonna die if he lets her get any closer. Rio tries to drill it into his head that Aoi is no longer human, but Arata is deep in denial. While they're in the middle of this argument, the boss pops up behind them, trying to use their distraction to land a cheap shot. But Rio's reflexes are absolutely cracked. He yanks them out of harm's way and immediately goes back to fighting the boss, all while Arata is still being a total crybaby. He's just talking about how he can't lose anyone else, and starts desperately trying to figure out how to stop this whole situation from getting worse. Suddenly it hits him. He remembers that new skill he got, vasculation. Since it's a skill that can revive a dead person and let him control them, Arata thinks this might be the only way out. But even as he thinks it, he's also stressing about how incredibly messed up it would be to use that kind of skill on Aoi. Still, he figures that if he uses the skill on Aoi, at least some version of her will get to stick around, even if it isn't the real deal. So Arata yeets all hesitation out the window and slams the skill activation button, because he is not about to lose someone precious to him ever again. Aoi gets hit with the skill, and a gnarly purple aura just floods into her body. A few moments later, Arata gets a ping from the system saying the transformation is complete, and the result is a total shocker. Aoi looks completely different as she bows to Arata like a loyal knight, pledging allegiance to her king. Arata gets another notification telling him the girl in front of him is a half-demon named Chiharu Toyoi, and she's now officially his vassal. Arata walks over, still calling her Aoi and asking if she's alright. He can tell the skill definitely worked, but her whole vibe feels completely different from the Aoi he knew. Our MC figures out that, while the magic beast conversion was stopped, she's just not Aoi anymore. Ryo whips around and starts screaming at Arata again, yelling that Aoi isn't even human anymore. But Arata just claps back, telling him that he's already made her his vassal. Ryo is completely floored by this, wondering where the heck Arata even got a skill like that. Arata, on the other hand, is 100% convinced that they can bring Aoi back someday, since it wasn't a full-blown Magai conversion. Just then, Aoi's expression flips to pure rage and she just bolts towards the boss. She tries to land a slash, but the monster chomps down and catches her arm right in its mouth. But get this, Aoi is completely unfazed because the Magai conversion has zero effect on her now. Aoi returns the favor with a nasty punch right to the boss's throat, and that's Arata's cue to finally join the fight. He launches himself at the monster, and with one cracked out slash he splits the boss clean in half, turning it into nothing but dust. And with that, Arata gets the system notification that the boss has been defeated and the rift is about to disappear. When they finally get back to the guild, Rei is in total disbelief, unable to process that the woman in front of her is actually Aoi. Rei asks what in the world happened, and Ryo explains that Aoi was on the verge of becoming a magic beast when they found her, all because she'd been bitten by the boss. Arata reveals that he was forced to use his vassalization skill, explaining that the monster they fought earlier had the ability, which is how he got it, after he took it down. Arata tells Rei he never wanted to use the skill, but he believes it's a hell of a lot better than losing Aoi for good. He mentions that making her his vassal stopped the Magai conversion cold, and now Aoi completely obeys him. Rei is just stunned by this massive info dump, and she nervously calls out Aoi's name. To their absolute surprise, Aoi actually responds by saying Rei's name right back. The trio is shook. They can't believe Aoi just spoke. Rei demands to know who she is, and she reveals that her name is Toyoi, a magic beast, but she promises them Aoi's consciousness is still kicking, deep down inside her. She explains she's a magic beast, but at the same time she isn't because she can feel everyone's emotions. When Arata hears this, he's so relieved to know Aoi is still alive in there, which means there's a legit chance they can bring her back one day. Ryo, however, is still giving him the side eye. He asks Arata if he's really sure that Toyoi won't just snap and attack people, even if he orders her not to. With a look of pure fire in his eyes, Arata promises them he will never let that happen, telling them straight up that he's betting his entire life on it. Ryo pushes back, asking how he plans to prove it, because Toyoi might just lose control and start attacking humans. Rei is taken aback by his harshness, but even though Ryo's words sting, Arata knows the guy has a point no cap. So, Arata turns to Toyoi and gives her a simple order: go play with the cat that's just chilling in the corner of the room. Without a second's hesitation, Toyoi excitedly walks over to the cat and starts petting it. Rei is completely blown away by this, and instead of seeing Toyo, all she can see is her friend Aoi petting the cat. Even Ryo can't believe his eyes. A cat is actually calm in front of what's supposed to be a magic beast. Ryo finally gets it. What they're seeing isn't just blind obedience. It's proof that Aoi's kind heart is still in there somewhere. And that's the real reason she has zero interest in messing with humans. So, Toyoi just scoops up the cat and strolls over to Ryo, who totally flinches. He tries to play it cool, telling her he knows she's harmless. But you can tell he's low-key freaking out. Rei instantly clocks that Ryo is terrified of cats, but my man tries his best to deny it. This just sends Arata and Toyoi into a fit of laughter, roasting the guy for acting all tough when he can't even handle a fluffy little kitten. Changing the subject, Rei asks Arata if he can keep an eye on Toyoi for a bit, promising him that she's got everything with the association handled. Arata doesn't even hesitate, assuring Rei that it's no problem at all for Toyoi to stick with him. Besides, deep down, Arata knows they're going to need Toyoi's insane power on their side down the line. So yeah, staying on her good side is a top priority. Arata then looks at Toyoi, telling her he wants her to start backing him up in his fights. Toyoi is absolutely hyped, promising Arata that as his official vassal he can count on her no cap. Meanwhile, across the city, the association's sensors are going berserk, detecting some massive geomagnetic fluctuations. It can only mean one thing: a large-scale rift is about to crash the party. A moment later, Dojo gets the report and immediately issues a code 0 to every guild. Honestly though, Dojo isn't even surprised. He's been expecting this monster of a rift to make a comeback, even if it took 17 years to show its face again. He stares at an old photo on his desk, a picture of his younger self standing beside someone. They were obviously close, but the other person's face is completely blurred. Back at the Navy Guild, Rei also gets the alert that Dojo just dropped a code 0. The second Rei and Rio hear those words, a cold chill crawls up their spines. Out in the city, folks are just going about their day when out of nowhere, a ginormous fissure rips open the sky. Everyone is shook, but for the older people who were around 17 years ago, they know exactly what this is, and it's a terrifying blast from the past. As the rift grows, monsters start flooding out, and pure panic erupts as citizens start screaming and running for their lives. But the monsters are right on their heels. Luckily, any slayers in the area immediately spring into action, doing their best to contain the chaos. They're floored by the sheer number of creatures pouring out, but they don't have time to be scared. Their job is to lock down the area, period. But before they can even get their bearings, a whole horde of monsters has them completely boxed in. And just like that, they know they're totally screwed. There's no way they can seal the perimeter with these kinds of numbers. Suddenly, a massive wave of fire roasts every last monster. As the smoke clears, the two young slayers look up in shock, and they see the legendary gold slayers walking toward them like total bosses. The wave of relief is real. The cavalry arrived in the absolute nick of time. Meanwhile, some unlucky civilians are already being corrupted by the rift's toxic aura, causing their bodies to grotesquely shapeshift. Seeing this, Rio immediately orders the other slayers to evacuate all civilians to a safe zone, ASAP. With that order given, Rio looks at Rei and tells him it's go time. They're heading straight into that fissure. Their one mission: find whatever boss is lurking inside and absolutely crush it. Rei warns Rio not to let his guard down for a second, because they can't afford a repeat of the disaster from 17 years ago. Rei can't help but wonder just how big this thing is going to be on the inside. Rio reassures Rei that he knows the stakes. The higher-ups never stop telling the story of what happened. In fact, he's heard the tragic tale of 17 years ago so many times he's honestly sick of it. Elsewhere, Dojo and Xian are also getting ready to dive into the rift. Dojo gives Xian a deadly serious look, saying they absolutely can't let history repeat itself. Xian just teases him back, telling him she gets the picture and promising they'll clean this mess up in record time. At the very same moment, Takuto is preparing to finally enter the fissure. This is the day he has been waiting for a very long time. But just as he's about to step in, Arata and Toyoa show up on the scene. Arata explains that their job is to hold the line on the outside, a direct order from Rei herself. Right before she left, Rei had told Arata it was time to stop talking and prove himself with his actions to fight like a real slayer. With no ETA on Rei's return, Arata and Toyoi jump into action, following his orders to take on the monsters swarming the area. They're not just slaying beasts, they're on full-on rescue duty, pulling every civilian. One of the women they save is trying to calm her terrified son, gently patting his head. She whispers to him that she promised the slayers would come and get them, and see they did. But just when things seem under control, flying magic beasts start pouring out of the rift, and Arata is completely blindsided. He's trying to figure out why the hell a whole swarm of monsters is suddenly spawning from this one portal. He quickly realizes they're in some serious trouble because flying monsters are a brand new discovery. Suddenly, one of the winged freaks dive bombs the mother and son that Arata just went through hell to save. Just as the monster is about to connect, Arata blitzes in, slicing it clean in half with the power of his suit. He immediately zips over to the mother and child, checking to see if they're okay. The woman assures Arata that they're fine, thanking him over and over for the clutch save. Arata glances up at the sky and his stomach just drops. It's absolutely thick with these new flying nightmares. He figures it's going to be a complete catastrophe if they all scatter, so he starts frantically trying to cook up a plan. Arata yells over to Toya that the monsters themselves aren't actually that strong. The big problem, however, is that they're basically sitting ducks as long as the monsters own the sky and they're stuck on the ground. before they can even think of a counterattack. The number of flying monsters just explodes, multiplying like an angry swarm of hornets. An endless stream of them just keeps pouring out from the rift. Arata immediately tells Toyoi they can't just sit around and do nothing, because the entire area is about to get completely wrecked. If he doesn't do something, it's game over. Arata knows he has to take out these monsters as fast as possible. So he starts blasting projectiles made of pure soot up at the swarm. He manages to nail a few of them, but they're zipping around so fast he knows it's going to take a massive effort just to hold them back. Arata is dead certain that if these flying monsters manage to take over this area, other regions are going to be in danger too. That's exactly why he has to shut them down right here, right now, while they're all still in one place. Just then, 3 other slayers show up on the scene as backup, and their jaws pretty much hit the floor when they see this new breed of monster. The squad leader starts barking orders, telling everyone with defensive skills to focus on protecting the citizens. At the same time, any slayers with long-range abilities are ordered to support Arata. With backup finally here, Arata is seriously fired up and ready to go all out to take down every last monster. He's dead set on preventing his home turf from falling into ruin, but at the same time he's worried. He knows everything he's been doing so far isn't nearly enough, which is why he has to find a way to slow them down. Arata concludes that his suit's special skill is the only way out of this. He starts to concentrate trying to find the best way to use it. He's been in plenty of tight spots like this before, and that experience is the only thing that's going to help him now. Suddenly, Arata unleashes a massive wave of soot from his hands, which completely covers the sky, swallowing every single monster in a dark cloud. Once he's sure he's got all of them in his trap, he instantly hardens the soot, basically solidifying the beasts in midair. Unbelievably, his crazy plan is working, but he can feel this move is burning through his MP like crazy. If he fails to kill every monster right now, he's totally done for. So Arata then increases the mass of the soot. The added weight starts dragging the paralyzed monsters down from the sky, and it works like an absolute charm. With the monsters finally within reach, Toyoi kicks into high gear and starts cutting them down. Thanks to this strategy, Arata is able to wipe out the huge cluster of monsters he trapped in a single brilliant move. He also realizes that he can control his skills way more easily than he could before. Riding this wave of momentum, Arata decides to press the attack and wipe out the rest of the monsters for good. Arata taps into his power again, but you can see he's straining himself as he tries to take them all down in one final move. This time Arata conjures a massive sword made entirely of soot, and with the last of the monsters grouped together, he cuts them all down at once, finally securing the area. The slayers standing behind Arata are absolutely floored by what they just witnessed, but the civilians, they're going wild, celebrating like crazy because the beasts have finally been defeated. Arata is completely gassed from the fight and collapses, but one of the other slayers immediately rushes over to give him his props. He tells Arata that no cap, they only managed to protect the area because of him, and from the looks of things, it doesn't seem like another huge wave is on its way. The slayer grabs Arata's hand and pulls him to his feet. Deep down, Arata's just relieved they were able to hold the line, which means the rest of this mess is now in the hands of the Gold Slayers. Arata is finally understanding what a large-scale rift is all about, but he can't shake the feeling that the enemy's push was kinda weak. Just then, the Slayer who was praising him gets a call and his face instantly drops. The headquarters is on fire. Arata's mind goes into overdrive when he hears this, because if the HQ burns down, the entire chain of command will completely collapse. You see, the central complex is the home of the Earth Guild, which most people know as the Sewa Guild. It's the absolute nerve center that governs every single Slayer operation in the country. The entire nationwide Slayer system is housed in that one building. This system has a detailed record of every magic rift that has ever occurred. This is the command hub that sends out missions to each and every guild. Inside, you'll also find the main armory, the medical ward, and on top of that, the reward distribution center and training facilities. It even has detention cells built to hold any Slayers who go rogue. And to top it all off, it's also the media control hub. Its duties basically stretch into every part of the nation. And if this headquarters were to fall, it would mean Japan's entire defense grid against magic beasts would be totally gone. Inside the HQ, a silver-ranked Slayer named Kohaku Do, who is under dojo, has taken charge and starts barking out orders. He yells for the other Slayers to evacuate all non-combatants and make sure they're protected. He orders the regular Slayers to pair up and stick to a tight formation no matter what. Meanwhile, the bronze ranks are tasked with guarding the core facilities and reporting any changes immediately. The silver-ranked Slayers, on the other hand, would be the ones to lead the charge against the magic beasts, who are trying to completely take over the headquarters. With a voice full of resolve, Kohaku tells the Slayers that it's all on them to hold the line now, Since all the Gold Slayers are away on another mission, Kohaku looks out the window, only to see a swarm of flying monsters circling them. He's racking his brain trying to figure out why so many magic beasts just appeared from nowhere, especially when they aren't even near the large-scale fissure. Then it hits him. The magic beasts must have been waiting for Dojo and the other Gold Slayers to clear out before they decided to make their move. He starts to wonder if a defensive barrier around the rift isn't cutting it anymore as he looks into the distance. He realizes the Slayers holding the perimeter are getting absolutely clapped by the monsters. As if that wasn't bad enough, the Slayers left inside the building are all raiders, which means they aren't built for defense, but for all-out assault. Just then, Kohaku gets word that the infirmary is on fire. This news completely shocks him. He can't believe the magic beasts have already pushed that far into their base. Without a moment's hesitation, he sprints to the infirmary, while telling the Slayer next to him to gather intel on everything. They desperately need a clear picture of what's happening. On his way, Kohaku is low-key worried that he isn't cut out for this. Dojo left the entire association in his care before leaving, and now he's arrived at the infirmary. Kohaku immediately realizes the place is swarming with magic beasts that have torn the area to shreds. One of the creatures hurls a fire attack right at him, but he leaps out of the way, dodging it just in time. With pure anger in his voice, Kohaku yells that the beasts won't be allowed to run wild in the headquarters. He quickly assesses that fire and wind attribute beasts are working together using the flames as a smokescreen. Since wind is his weak attribute, Kohaku wonders if taking out the fire-type beast first is the right move here. Just then, Ararata and Toyoi arrive on the scene, and seeing how everything has gone to hell, Arata confirms that the headquarters is no cap on fire. Even though he really didn't want to come here, he gets that he doesn't have a choice anymore. Arata then turns to Kohaku. He tells the other guy he'll handle the fire, so he can focus on the monsters. Kohaku's instantly pissed off that some random Slayer just popped up to give him orders, but then he gets a better look. And it hits him. That's Arata, the irregular who made a run for it. He can also totally sense the magic beast vibes coming off of Toyoi, but Arata couldn't care less about Kohaku's complaints and just deploys his suit to kill the flames. Kohaku is completely floored when he watches Arata snuff out the massive fire with a single effortless blast. Even though Arata's an irregular, Kohaku decides to team up with him for now, just as one of the monsters makes a beeline for Arata. But Kohaku's power kicks in first, and he instantly petrifies the creatures as solid with his ability. Kohaku even throws some shade at the monster, saying he's just added another fancy statue to his collection. With a hand on the ground, Kohaku then pulls out a seriously intimidating spear before charging straight at the frozen monster. He slams the spear right into the beast, shattering it into a million pieces. Kohaku then looks at Arata and says he's basically on probation until they've secured the entire headquarters. He makes it crystal clear that their mission is to wipe out every single magic beast in this place, and Arata's on board with that. Loki, though, Arata is just relieved he gets to fight alongside a prodigy, a dude so cracked he hit the number 2 seat in the Seiwa Guild, at such an insanely young age. He's not sure if Kohaku can spam that petrification spell over and over, but he can't deny how ridiculously powerful the skill is. Arata gets an idea. By using his suit, he could probably harden the beasts himself, and then just seal them away. So Arata does just that, and Kohaku is absolutely stunned that he was able to copy his signature move, after seeing it only one time. Once the area is clear, Arata gives Kohaku props telling him that move was pretty awesome. Kohaku quickly turns away so Arata won't see him blushing, trying to play it cool, and saying that skill was nothing. He claims it's just a tiny fraction of his real power. Then Kohaku switches gears, asking Arata why he's so reckless with his skills, pointing out that his control is a complete train wreck. He explains that this kind of carelessness will just drain his MP and leave his defenses wide open. "This is why you are always exhausted," Kohaku says. "You don't even get the basics." Arata's genuinely shocked to hear this, since he doesn't know the first thing about any of his skills. He's just been fighting for his life this whole time, and never gave it a second thought, which makes Kohaku tease him. He tells him to try not to drag the team down, but Arata's just confused about what they're even supposed to be, protecting in a situation this messed up. Meanwhile, in the headquarters Divine Armory, Takatora is busy messing with weapons that definitely don't belong to him. He finds a golden sword and basically decides finders keepers, since everything's already gone to hell. His new plan is to become the legendary hero who saves everyone. With the Gold Slayers nowhere in sight, he grabs the divine sword and immediately feels an insane rush of power coursing through his entire body. This gives him the bright idea that he's already stronger than the 5 heavenly kings, and he lets out a crazy laugh, declaring himself the strongest in the world. On the flip side, Arata, Kohaku, and Toyoi are still busy mopping up monsters all over the headquarters. Kohaku is stuck trying to figure out what to defend first. He doesn't know if they should prioritize the command room or the storage room. After taking down a ton of monsters, Arata starts wondering where all these beasts are even coming from, because there were 0 of them near the headquarters when they first showed up. Kohaku completely agrees, saying they need to find the source and fast. He announces that he's going to check for any weird spatial disturbances that might be spawning the beasts. Placing his hand on the ground, he can immediately tell the Earth's energy in the area is totally messed up, like something big happened underground. As soon as he pinpoints the origin of the problem, Kohaku bolts, telling Arata to keep up or eat his dust. A few moments later, they arrive at the headquarters' underground record storage room. And to their complete and utter surprise, right in the middle of the room, there's this massive hole where the monsters must have crawled in from. The monsters totally played them, using this hole to sneak inside while everyone's attention was glued to the massive demonic rift outside. Just as they realize this, another wave of monsters crashes the party, and Kohaku instantly whips out his spear ready for a throwdown. A blinding flash of light erupts from his spear as he slams it into the nearest beast. Arate wants in on the action too, but as he struggles to summon his power, Kohaku tells him to take it easy and not force anything. He's a valuable part of their team now. He advises him to focus on his breathing, to clear his mind and find his center, and let the power bubble up naturally from his core, instead of trying to brute force it. Arata decides to actually listen to Kohaku's advice and concentrates. And you won't believe it, Arata manages to manifest a massive sword made entirely of soot. He immediately starts slicing through the monsters, and Kohaku, who's actually impressed, tells Arata he's improved a little. Of course, on the inside, Kohaku knows that Arata's technique and combat instincts are still pretty garbage. But you can't deny he's slowly getting used to the heat of battle. He also clocks that Toyoi is a total weirdo, but he can't really say anything, cause not gonna lie, she's actually pretty useful right now. After they've cleared the room of monsters, Kohaku steps up and uses his power to seal the tunnel shut. With that weak point plugged, Kohaku turns to Arata and says it's time for them to go on the offensive and wipe out the rest of these things. But even though the tunnel is sealed, Arata gets a bad feeling worrying that they haven't plugged all the leaks. He's especially concerned since there are still quite a few magic beasts in the area. Kohaku then explains that most of the magic beasts that use the tunnel have already scattered, which is exactly why plugging that hole was their top priority. But just in case they're wrong, Arata reveals he's got a backup plan. He's already left soot markers everywhere. His soot quickly expands like a radar network, and Arata suddenly tells Kohaku he's sensing a seriously powerful magic beast presence right above them. Arata insists they need to move upstairs immediately, explaining that the vibe he's getting is completely unnatural. He pinpoints the main hotspot, saying the biggest cluster of magic beasts is gathered in the open space on the floor above. Kohaku is completely floored when he hears this, realizing with dread that it could only be the training facility. A few moments later, they burst into the headquarters training facility. And to their absolute horror, there's a freaking rift right there inside their own headquarters. Kohaku is beyond pissed, realizing that with all the chaos happening outside, this thing opened up right under their noses, as more magic beasts swarm out of the rift, stunning Arata. Kohaku connects the dots, explaining that this was the enemy's real play. The fire and the underground tunnel were just diversions to pull their attention away. Absolutely enraged, Kohaku doesn't hesitate and immediately launches himself at the magic beast. Arata jumps right in, and the two of them start working together to mow down the monsters. Kohaku quickly figures out that fighting these things is just a temporary fix. Their only real option is to close this rift as soon as possible. The problem is, he's worried that if he leaves this spot to deal with it, the rest of the association will be left defenseless. Adding to the stress, he realizes this rift is built different from the usual ones. It's massive enough to be actively spawning new magic beasts on the spot. Kohaku starts desperately racking his brain for a solution. He even finds himself wondering what his master dojo would do in a situation this messed up. Just then, Arata cuts through his thoughts, telling Kohaku that he's willing to be the one to go. Kohaku is stunned when he hears this because he can clearly see that Arata is already exhausted. And yet, he's still ready to throw himself into the thick of it without any hesitation, making Kohaku wonder what in the world is driving this kid so hard. Seeing Arata's resolve, Kohaku makes a decision and tells him that he's going as well. His reasoning is simple: if Arata, who's basically a rogue slayer with no official obligation, is willing to put his life on the line, then there's no way. Kohaku trusts that the other slayers left in the building are strong enough to hold down the fort against any other magic beasts that pop up. Just focus on taking out the nest first. With that, Arata hypes up the squad and they finally step into the rift. Kohaku leads the charge, telling them there's no way they're losing to some low-tier magic beasts like these. He gives the order for the other two to follow his lead as they plunge headfirst into the portal. Once inside, they find themselves standing in what looks like some kind of creepy throne room. Kohaku can't help but admit the whole place gives him the chills, while Arata is completely floored to see a magic beast actually, calling the shots from the shadows like some kind of final boss. Not wasting any time, Kohaku tells them they need to wrap this mission up fast and get out, because he's got other responsibilities to handle. But as they push deeper into the chamber, they can't shake the feeling that something is seriously off. Meanwhile, the Goldslayers are getting smacked with their own set of completely different problems. A few moments later, Kohaku points out how weird it is that not a single monster has jumped them yet, especially since they stepped foot in this bizarre area. Out of nowhere, Kohaku asks Arata what his reason for fighting even is. The question totally catches Arata off guard, but before he can even stammer out an answer, Kohaku cuts him off. He, on the other hand, is fighting for the sake of the dojo. Kohaku explains that as long as the dojo exists, the Slayers will have the strength to fight the magic beasts, but he thinks Arata is just completely unrefined. Toyoi, being a menace, deliberately twists his words, telling Arata that Kohaku just meant he's not his type. Kohaku immediately gets flustered and tells Toyoi she's completely misunderstanding what he said. He tells her to just watch Dojo fight. He starts absolutely glazing the guy, saying he wields his power like a raging storm, and his season technique 0 wasted motion. Kohaku just keeps going, saying Dojo's form is basically pure art. He starts rambling about how an ancient master painter would have turned the moment into a masterpiece if he'd seen it, but Toyoi is not impressed at all. But Toyoi isn't buying any of this hype Kohaku is spewing. Kohaku just brushes her off, thinking she's just a disrespectful brat. After he's done simping for Dojo, he tells Arata to feel the current of power inside him, and right then, they arrive at a massive door. The second the door creaks open, they're staring down a giant monster with human heads and a seriously messed up, terrifying body. Without warning, the beast blasts a laser beam that nails Kohaku dead on. In an instant, Kohaku's vision changes, and he sees Dojo lying on the ground, his body completely mangled. Kohaku lets out a scream of pure agony as he watches his mentor's body get torn to shreds, having no idea he's actually trapped in a powerful illusion. Back in reality, Arata is watching him, wondering what the hell is wrong with Kohaku, who just collapsed while staring at the beast. Arata puts it together that the laser must be the monster's main attack. At the same time, Toyoi is also screaming, clutching her head in absolute pain. Before Arata can even process what's happening, the monster zaps him with a laser shot too. And just like that, Arata's deepest fears are brought to life, as visions of everyone he couldn't save start popping up. They're all yelling at him, blaming him for their deaths, and calling him a failure of a slayer. The voices tell him he should have been the one to die instead. The emotional damage hits critical levels, and Arata crashes to his knees completely broken as the weight of it all crushes him. All the while, the monster is just soaking it all in, getting a kick out of the team's suffering. But then something inside Arata just clicks. He realizes that even though he's failed time and time again, he's still got to fight. Fueled by pure willpower, Arata forces himself back to his feet. He's dead set on bringing Aoi back, refusing to let there be a repeat of what went down with his brother. With his new resolve, he tries to tap into that inner power Kohaku was talking about. And just then, he somehow manages to grab hold of Aoi's magic power, wondering if his vassalization skill is what made it possible. The second he feels that power, Arata knows he can use it and starts digging deeper to pull out even more. But the monster sees Arata snapping out of it and starts frantically blasting attacks right at him. His attack lands with a massive explosion, but when the smoke clears, Arata is completely unharmed. He's standing behind a shield he managed to whip up, using Aoi's power, and even Arata himself is low-key surprised. He somehow tapped into Aoi's abilities, creating a shield that just deflects everything. With the shield tanking the monster's assault, Arata finally has an opening to prep a real attack. On the flip side, Kohaku is still totally trapped inside the illusion. He's convinced Dojo is actually dead, but then it clicks Arata's about to 1v1 this monster all by himself. He feels like a total failure, so he literally slams his head into the ground just to snap himself out of the daze. And believe it or not, it works. He's back to reality, giving the boss monster the ultimate death stare. He promises to end this right here for his mentor's sake. At this point, the monster is just spamming laser beams at Arata, but he blocks every single one with a shield. The monster is getting seriously tilted that none of its attacks are getting through. Suddenly, Arata's spidey senses start tingling. He whips around and realizes a piece of the monster has completely split off from the main body. This new clone is charging right at him, but But just as it's about to slash him to ribbons, Toyoi's voice echoes through the area. She's straight up roasting the monster, saying it got way too cocky, spawning clones so fast that it broke its own illusion. The clone lunging for Arata gets absolutely impaled by Toyoi's razor-sharp claws. And honestly, she looks like a total queen doing it. With Toyoi back in the game and ready to throw down, Arata turns to check on Kohaku, but he doesn't know Kohaku is already back on his feet and is absolutely furious. He activates his ultimate skill Stone Gargantua, which summons a colossal suit of armor that completely towers over the boss. With one absolute haymaker, Kohaku vaporizes 4 clones at once, letting out a massive surge of power from his body. Even Arata is blown away by this display. He finally gets just how much of a beast Kohaku really is. Plus, Kohaku looks absolutely menacing now, like his personality just did a complete 180. The boss monster tries to pull a sneak attack on Arata from behind, but our boy's senses are on point. He leaps out of the way just as it punches, causing the monster to crater the ground and giving Arata a perfect chance to counter. But his attack just bounces right off the monster's thick skull. Kohaku sees this and yells at Arata to stay focused. He also tells him to refine his magic power. Arata's confused about what he means, but Kohaku knows that if Arata doesn't figure it out, his journey ends right here. His story will be over in this very room if he can't push past his limits. Taking Kohaku's words to heart, Arata closes his eyes to concentrate, blocking out all the distractions. Finally, Arata channels Aoi's power into his sword, transforming the blade into the legendary glittering mist sword. With his new power-up, Arata blitzes towards the monster, and in the blink of an eye, he slices it clean in half, finishing the beast for good. Panting from the exertion, he turns to look back at Toyoi and Kohaku. Toyoi is completely shook, while Kohaku has the proudest dad look on his face. He gives Arata a nod, basically telling him that he just passed the test. Totally drained from that last move, Arata collapses to the ground, and Toyoi immediately rushes over to him. Kohaku, however, realizes that Arata's power is on the same level as those who awaken a golden orb, and that fact has him seriously questioning what Arata's true goal really is. Later on, the team returns to HQ and finishes clearing out the rest of the monsters. With their mission complete, the association headquarters is finally safe. Now that HQ is secure, Kohaku figures the next big threat on the horizon is the large-scale fissure. Meanwhile, inside the rift, Doju and Shion are deep in a massive forest trying to track down the boss. Shion is complaining non-stop about how filthy the area is, whining that her clothes are getting completely wrecked. Doju just throws shade, telling her that's what she gets for dressing like that for a fight. But Shion has absolutely zero chill and just starts taking her anger out on the scenery, blasting a massive hole in front of them to make their own private road. Doju is just watching, completely baffled by how over the top she is. His mind flashes back 17 years, to a time when the barrier separating their world from the magic rift was stretched so thin it was about to snap. The whole thing was literally on the brink of total collapse. An endless wave of magic beasts poured through, and the body count was insane. Doju remembers they were too slow to respond back then. He's not about to let history repeat itself, no way. Still, his gut is telling him something is seriously off. A rift this quiet is just plain creepy, and it's setting off all his alarm bells. Shion figures the monsters are just setting up an ambush, and Doju is like, no cap, that's exactly what I was thinking. He warns Shion not to get complacent. A few moments later, they find this huge tree that's giving off some seriously sketchy vibes. This has to be the place. They've hit the jackpot. Shion's glad they've found their target, because it means they can skip the whole boring search and destroy part. A quick scan reveals the monsters chilling in the tree are A-rank easy, if not even stronger. Shion is already over it, saying she just wants to clock out and go home. The monsters in question are the false twins. We've got Aram of the White Wings and Varuna of the Black Wings, and these guys look like straight-up nightmares. They are officially classified as A-rank beasts. That's according to the association's official threat rankings. The twins are low-key shocked that Shinon and Doju actually managed to find them, and they make it clear that our heroes just signed their own death warrants. These two start running their mouths, boasting about how they easily smoked the Silver Slayers. They then ask Doju and Shion how many seconds they reckon they can last before getting turned to dust. Not even waiting for a reply, the twins launch a huge laser blast right at them. Seeing how badly they're being underestimated, Doju and Shion decide it's time to teach them a lesson. A golden aura erupts from Doju's body as he schools the twins, telling them that gold isn't just a prettier version of silver. Nah, they're about to get a front row seat to why they're called the Golden Slayers. Badass golden armor materializes around Doju's body, while Shion starts cooking up a giant ball of pure destruction. The twins' attack hits Doju head-on, but my man just tanks it without breaking a sweat. The twins see this, and yeah, they immediately start freaking out. But they refuse to get clapped that easily, so they panic-fire a whole new volley of lasers way more intense than the last one. Doju just stands his ground and blocks everything they throw at him, giving Xion the perfect opening to finally unleash the nuke she's been cooking. The moment the false twins see the size of that thing, the color drains from their faces. They know they're totally screwed. Doju isn't even fazed. He already knows that at the end of the day, humans and beasts are built the same. They're both prisoners of their own experience, which is why they foolishly assume the Gold Slayers were nothing special. But the power of a Golden Slayer hits different. It's a reality-bending force that just doesn't compute for creatures like them. The twins are frozen in terror as Xion's attack incinerates them and the entire area, leaving nothing behind but a crater where the huge tree used to be. After mopping up their sector, Xion turns to Doju and wonders aloud if the other squads have finished their jobs too. Meanwhile, Rio and Rei are absolutely styling on their targets Ariel, the Priest of Vanity, and Balm, the War Idol, with basically no effort. The fight is a total cakewalk, and they wipe out the monsters just as easily as our main duo did. At the same time, Takuto is having an equally easy time mopping the floor with Lil and Voss, the twin phantoms of illusory sound. Takuto, however, looks kinda bored. He's disappointed that the one person he really wanted to throw down with was a no-show. He just figures that they'll have to save their dance for later. A little while later, Kohaku gets the update that Doju is heading back to HQ, and the guy is absolutely thrilled to hear it. When word spreads to the other Slayers, the entire room goes wild with celebration. And just like that, the crisis caused by the large-scale magic rift was over. The association's official report claimed that damages were kept to a minimum. But the big question remained unanswered. What was the beast's real endgame? Just when you think things can't get any crazier, a new problem literally explodes from behind the association headquarters. And bro, it's Takatora, and he's wielding a freaking divine weapon. That thing is already corrupting him. One of his eyes is glowing a demonic red, and his right arm is morphing into something straight out of a nightmare. But my guy is still smiling, absolutely drunk on his new power trip. As he floats down from the sky, he starts raining absolute hellfire on all the buildings below. Every alarm in the city starts blaring, signaling that things are about to get real bad, real fast. Rei gets back to the guild just in time to hear the catastrophic news from her attendant. She can't believe her eyes. Takatora is just tearing the association headquarters to shreds. Her attendant frantically explains they can't get in touch with anyone at the Sewa Guild, and when Rei hears this, her heart drops. Her mind immediately jumps to Arata and Aoi, terrified they're caught in the crossfire. With zero hesitation, she bolts toward the headquarters, praying she can get to them before it's too late. Meanwhile, back at the HQ, Takatora is in full-on villain mode, launching massive fireballs everywhere. He's not even trying to avoid hitting innocent people anymore. He's got zero. Seeing how dire the situation is, Arata orders Toyoi to focus on getting the civilians to safety, while Kohaku gets a better look at Takatora's arm. And that's when he sees it, realizing with shock that the dude is holding a divine weapon. Kohaku immediately starts calling the guy out, telling him that you don't just pick a divine weapon, it has to choose you. He explains that these weapons basically have a mind of their own and select their wielder. Kohaku is racking his brain, trying to figure out how Takatora even got his hands on it, since the armory's barrier shouldn't have been breakable by someone on his level. Right then, Takatora lets out this huge psychotic laugh, screaming that he's the strongest there is. But suddenly, he cries out in pain as a dark, shadowy figure rips itself out of his body. The shadow creature lunges right at Arata, but our boy manages to throw up his shield just in time to block the attack. Arata forces himself to focus, knowing he can't afford any distractions right now. He's got a whole crowd of innocent people relying on him for protection. With one clean strike, he slices the shadow right in half, ready to push past his limits as a slayer. At the same time, Kohaku and Toyoi team up to take on Takatora, determined to protect their guild and everyone in it. But a few moments later, Arata feels his strength failing. He's burned through way too much of his power. Sensing his weakness, Takatora closes in for the kill, lunging at him with a devastating blow. Arata knows his shield won't hold up, so he spins around using his own back to shield the kids and civilians behind him. He manages to reinforce his body with what's left of his shield's power. But the impact still hits like a freight train, and Arata has to grit his teeth to keep from screaming in pain. His body is covered in burns, and to make matters worse, he's completely out of magic. At this point, it feels like an ocean of pain is just crashing over him. Toyoi is also giving it everything she's got, desperately trying to keep the civilians safe. And Kohaku is barely holding his own against the monsters, trying his best to live up to his title as the Sewa Guild's #2. Just then, Rei finally arrives on the scene and a huge smile spreads across her face when she sees that her friends are still standing. She rushes over to help them, but that's when she sees the trio was completely and utterly drained. After confirming everyone was evacuated, she's absolutely seething with rage and tells them to fall back, promising to handle the rest. Takatora is still on his destructive rampage when a powerful energy blast smacks him out of nowhere. The attack sends him flying clean into the distance. Rei's expression is pure ice as she tells Takatora that mercy is officially off the table. He's going to pay for everything he's done. Rei is disgusted that he would not only steal a divine weapon, but also throw away his own humanity for power. Takatora desperately fires off a magic blast at Rei, but she just walks right through it, like it's nothing. She calmly informs him that she's about to beat him into next week. A massive wave of energy explodes from Rei's body, and in that moment she looks like a completely different person. So while they're heading back to headquarters, Dojo drops a bombshell on Shion, revealing that Rei is actually the Golden Slayer with the most insane fire power, and Shion is totally floored. Low-key, she was dead certain it was going to be Dojo. Dojo admits that while he might have the edge on Rei in a one-on-one the moment she's fighting by herself, it's a whole different ballgame. Shion's like, wait, what do you mean by herself? And he breaks it down for her. As long as Rei doesn't have to stress about protecting anyone else, she's leagues stronger than any of the other Golden Slayers, period. He explains that Rei is built different, wielding the powers of both water and lightning. This magic is so freaking dangerous that she has to seriously hold back whenever she's fighting with a team. Because of this, Rei was pretty much labeled a heretic, forcing her down a really tough road. Turns out she's actually the very first irregular. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Kohaku suddenly snaps back to consciousness, and when he looks up, he sees Takatora and Rei throwing down hard. It doesn't take long for Rei to notice that Kohaku is back on his feet, and she lets out a massive sigh of relief. She's actually impressed, thinking that Kohaku is a natural at handling her power, since she's been juicing up the trio with a slice of her own energy. Kohaku is ready to jump in and help her clap Takatora, but she tells him to fall back. He's about to argue, but Rei gives him that look, making it crystal clear that this is an order, not a request. Kohaku finally gets the message and backs off. Rei tells him to grab the other two and get them to safety while she handles the rampaging Takatora. Not wanting to argue with a direct order, Kohaku grabs his two unconscious buddies and bolts from the danger zone. Once they're a safe distance away, he whips up a healing pool to help them recover their magic power. On the other side of things, Rei is beyond disappointed in herself, feeling like she failed the guild. She couldn't keep Takatora in check, and now look at the mess he's in. Rei is straight up pissed at how this all went down, concluding that she should have just handled everything solo from the get-go. Takatora, absolutely losing his mind from being manhandled by Rei, just roars in fury and launches a storm of ice swords right at her. Rei instantly throws up a force field, blocking the insane barrage of attacks, as most of them just fly right past her. A couple of the swords get snagged in the barrier, and when Rei sees how ridiculously close one came to ending her, it flips a switch. She gets absolutely furious, and while holding the force field, she remembers her parents telling her how they'd protect the city no matter what. Rei finally taps into that raw rage, unleashing her lightning powers and completely shattering every single attack coming her way. She drops into an attack stance and blasts Takatora with a lightning beam, trapping the dude inside a massive lightning tornado. Takatora screams in agony as the electricity fries his body, and Kohaku is just floored seeing Rei in action. I mean, she's wielding the two most cracked gifts from the gods, but that kind of power always comes with a heavy price tag. See, back when Rei was younger, none of her classmates wanted to hang out with her because they were all convinced of one thing. They thought she was going to go berserk at any moment just because she was an irregular. Just looking at Rei now, Kohaku knows she's had to walk a seriously tough road to get this strong. With a simple hand gesture, Rei whips up another lightning attack and fires it straight at Takatora. He screams in pure horror as the lightning punches right through his body, but Rei is far from finished with him. She keeps punishing him, tossing him around inside the tornado like he's a rag doll. Kohaku is straight up terrified watching this because it just proves how next level insane Rei's power really is. Pissed off from being thrashed around, Takatora lunges toward Rei, trying to turn it into a close quarters fight. Big mistake. Rei dodges him easily, grabs his mangled hand, and gives him a little piece of advice. She tells him he should just forget about ever trying to beat her in a fist fight. Rei then charges her right fist with crackling lightning, and Takatora watches in absolute terror as she decks him with a supercharged punch. The impact creates a massive shockwave that sends Takatora flying so far he practically disappears over the horizon. Takatora smashes into the ground, but somehow the guy is already trying to get back up, and Rei can't believe her eyes. She realizes his divine weapon is no joke, but But even with the danger right in front of her, she knows she has to finish this. All by herself. She flashes back to holding her mother's body, blaming herself for all the pain that everyone she's ever cared about has had to endure. Since Takatora is being too stubborn to just stay down, Rei tells him she's about to end this for good. Just then, Kohaku notices the water on the ground starting to move weirdly, leaving him totally clueless about what's happening. As she preps her ultimate attack, she knows it's going to leave her wide open for a minute, but at this point, she doesn't have a choice. She has to use it and just hope she doesn't accidentally vaporize the guy. And then she unleashes it a powerful lightning shot that looks like a literal nuke. With no escape, Takatora gets hit head-on, triggering a massive explosion. The blast slams into Takatora with devastating force. Kohaku is completely stunned. He can't wrap his head around the fact that he just saw Rei fire off what was basically a hydrogen bomb. And with pinpoint accuracy, too. After the light show, Rei finally floats back to the ground, and just as she predicted, and her legs give out and she collapses from pure exhaustion. Kohaku rushes over to her side, but she manages to get back to her feet, telling him she's fine. Even though she looks totally drained, she glances into the distance and sees all the people. They're all cheering for her, celebrating her victory. A smile finally breaks onto her face, and she's already thinking about going home for a barbecue because damn, she has earned it. And in that exact moment, a sword pierces straight through her from behind. She screams a sound of pure shock and unbelievable pain. When she turns to see her attacker, it's Takatora, the very guy they all thought was dead and gone. Rei hits the ground hard, blood pouring from her mouth, and a gaping hole in her chest, as Kohaku screams and rushes toward her. He's freaking out, absolutely terrified that she's about to die. Rei, on the other hand, is just disappointed in herself for letting her guard down. She completely misjudged how tough he was, and that single mistake is why she's now bleeding out on the ground. Rei is pretty sure this is the end, but with tears streaming down her face, she believes she at least gave it everything she had. Takatora starts laughing like a complete psycho, telling Rei she belongs to him now, as he raises his sword to finish her off for good. But then out of nowhere, Aoi swoops in and snatches his hand. Rei starts coughing up blood, yelling at Aoi for putting herself on the line, but she just reminds him that he's not in this fight alone. Takatora, who's got absolutely zero chill, just smacks her hand away, and the moment the other Slayers witness that disrespect, they all start to rally. They've got one goal: protect Rei, the one who has been fighting like a demon for them, and she can only watch as they throw their lives away for her. To them, she's the last beacon of hope they have, but all Rei wants is for them to just get the hell out of there. She can't stand the thought of more people dying because of her. As this is happening, Kohaku kneels by her side, desperately trying to heal her with his power. But she's slipping away fast. She's praying for a miracle for anyone to show up, while Takatora is just having the time of his life, when suddenly Arata drops in unannounced. He straight up grabs the dude by his head, and before Takatora can even blink, he gets sent flying across the battlefield, like a rag doll. The second he crash lands, dozens of swords forged from pure soot erupt from the ground, skewering his body. But Takatora's ego is so massive, he's completely blinded, genuinely believing this new Arata is still no match for him. Bruh. Arata just casually unleashes another devastating attack, and the resulting explosion sends Takatora slamming back down to earth. As Arata coldly tells him to shut his trap, we see he looks completely different, with a freaking horn now growing out of his head. And this new appearance totally floors Rei. Even Takatora is shook, staring in disbelief and trying to process what the hell happened to Arata. Turns out, just moments before, a mysterious voice had echoed in Arata's mind, and he was instantly yanked into some bizarre mental landscape. Arata's just kicking himself, pissed off that he actually got knocked out by Takatora's attacks. That's when he spots him, a man completely bound in chains. And the second this chained-up figure realizes Arata can finally see and hear him, he lets out this booming, maniacal laugh. Not taking any chances, Arata instantly whips out his sword, demanding to know who the hell this guy is. The dude just tells Arata to chill, revealing his name is actually Regnus. He promises Arata that he's about to get all the answers about the insane power he's been wielding. But Arata isn't here for a long-winded speech. He just straight up slices the guy in two. Regnus can't believe how impulsive he is, while Arata just roars at him to get him the hell out of this weird mind prison that he finds himself in. Regnus calmly explains that the sword to the power, it all belongs to him, because he's the one who gave Arata those gifts in the first place. Arata is floored by this bombshell, and Regnus tells him it's time to finally understand his true purpose. Because as it turns out, Arata is the long-prophesied heretic. Arata is just completely lost, having no clue what this guy is even talking about. It all just sounds like cryptic nonsense to him. So Regnus breaks it down for him. The power he's using is absolutely forbidden. And that's exactly what makes him a heretic. Regulus explains that with this power he can plunder whatever he wants from anyone with no rules and no reason. Clearly not a fan of that little monologue, Arata just lops off Regulus's head. Again, he tells the regenerating head that he's got a million questions for him. But he doesn't have time for a Q&A session. Arata gets straight to the point, demanding Regulus give him more juice since he's the original owner of the power. And he's not asking nicely either, grabbing the guy by his collar chains. Instead of getting mad, Regulus is low-key impressed, admitting the kid's got some serious guts. He even adds that Arata is a long way from the crybaby he used to be. Regulus teases him, saying he could just say no to his demand. But Arata hits him with a checkmate, pointing out that if he doesn't help, Regulus will probably stay chained up in this void for all eternity. Regulus can't help but be impressed by his sharp thinking, agreeing to give him 1 single minute to tap into the core of his true power. And that brings us back to reality. Arata now gets why his body has transformed. Regulus basically gave him a power-up that was a little too strong. But Takatora, ever the arrogant fool, still thinks Arata doesn't stand a chance demon form or not. He charges straight at Arata, but our boy effortlessly summons a wall of shields to block the attack, and then decides it's his turn to play. Model. By landing a nasty blow right to Takatora's chest that sends the guy flying. Before Takatora can even process what happened, he's pinned to the ground looking like a human pincushion with a bunch of swords sticking out of his back. But even then, Takatora is in complete denial, refusing to even consider the possibility that he could lose to some nobody like Arata. So, Takatora decides to switch targets and go after Toyoe and the others, but before he can make a move, Toyoe unleashes a massive skill. She summons Blackmail Beast to shove Takatora back. Takatora is absolutely shook. He never in a million years expected Toyoe to be packing that kind of power. This sends Takatora into a full-on rage, and he starts screaming about being from the great Goto conglomerate, while flexing the divine sword in his hand. He goes on about how he dethroned the 5 kings, and took over simply because he was the strongest one around. Arata, however, isn't having it, and immediately calls him out for stealing someone else's orb, and even turning his own brother into a magic beast. Arata spits that Takatora is a monster far worse than any magic beast, especially since he also had the nerve to steal a divine sword. After listing off all these crimes, Arata hits him with the coldest question, so, how do you want to die? The pressure coming from Arata's voice is so heavy that even Rei can feel the killing intent from a distance. But Takatora, blinded by his own massive ego, tells Arata he has zero intention of being killed by the likes of him. Takatora starts boasting about being a golden slayer, and tries to flex a massive wave of energy from his body. But all of a sudden, blood just starts erupting from his body like a broken faucet. The moment Arata sees this, it all clicks. Takatora's body is rejecting the orb's power because it was never his to begin with. The dude was running on stolen power from the start, and when Takatora realizes he's totally screwed, he makes a break for it. But Arata, with absolutely zero chill, casually tears open a rift. Kohaku is stunned. Takatora slams on the brakes as the portal appears, but then Arata's hand snakes out from the void. He grabs Takatora by the head and yanks him partway into the rift. Arata looks absolutely terrifying. As he tells Takatora that his days of running are. Arata then taunts him, asking what he thinks would happen if the portal just snapped shut right now. Realizing this means his head would be sliced clean off, Takatora completely breaks down and starts bawling his eyes out. Just as Arata is about to do it, Toyoe grabs him from behind, pleading with him not to lose himself to his hatred. She warns him that if he goes through with this, he'll never be able to live with himself. Her voice hits different, and Arata actually pauses. Instead of going for the head, he closes the rift on Takatora's arm. It severs his right arm completely, making the dude scream his lungs out in pure agony. Now that Takatora is out of the equation, the adrenaline fades, and Arata finally collapses from total exhaustion. And with that, the whole string of disasters that started with the massive rift was finally brought to a close. Goto Takatora was tossed into the deepest part of the underground dungeon. His Slayer license was also revoked, essentially dooming him to a life in the shadows where he'd never be relevant again. After the fight, Arata found it pretty much impossible to contact Regulus, the entity who gave him his power. On top of that, he couldn't get the ability to work the same way it did before. Arata had a million questions, but even with all that on his mind, he had an even bigger problem to deal with: his court hearing. At the Irregular Treatment Council, Arata is called to the stand to answer for his actions. Dojo gets straight to the point, telling him the council can't just overlook him violating their commandments and pulling off a jailbreak from an underground cell. Considering everything he's done, Dojo announces that they are here to decide his fate. Standing beside him is Toyoi, who has been gagged to keep her quiet while the Gold Slayers are sitting in on the hearing. Other high-ranking Slayers who are council members are also present. Dojo explains how Arata's power went so out of control that he even created a small-scale magic rift. He argues that a rampage like that could easily escalate into a major catastrophe that could bring ruin to all the Slayers. Because of this massive risk, Dojo opens the floor to the other Slayers wanting to hear their thoughts on the matter. Rei is the first one to stand up, declaring that the rampage was her fault since she was his supervisor. She also makes it clear that without Arata, they never would have been able to stop Takatora. Ryo quickly backs her up. He argues that Arata might be a wild card, but thanks to him, they managed to take down a massive number of monsters. He then adds that he has actually fought in the trenches with Arata, so he's pretty damn sure he knows what the guy is all about, and that's when Takuto jumps into the conversation. He argues that they absolutely can't just ignore Arata's whole deal, even if nobody has a clue where his insane power is coming from. So, he pitches an idea, just put Arata under heavy surveillance for now. Doju then turns to Shion, asking if she has anything to add to the situation. Shion finally pipes up, saying she's just kinda shocked that Arata was out there fighting without even getting a paycheck. It seriously makes her question why he's even trying to be a Slayer in the first place. Doju is in disbelief, like, "Bruh, is that really all you have to say right now?" He just lets out a heavy sigh before turning his back on her, but then Arata himself decides to speak, admitting he doesn't fully get his own power. He says, yeah, it's true, he went completely berserk, but he promises them he'd do it all over again if it meant saving people. In that instant, one of the old guard conservatives leaps to his feet, screaming at Arata not to mess with them, and he just goes off about how Arata's very existence is a problem. He points out that the fact he now has a legit magic beast as his sidekick is just absurd. The guy rants about how many disasters have been kicked off by rogue Slayers just like him in the past, which low-key doesn't surprise Ryo at all. After all, these conservative types are known for being obsessed with the old ways, but Doju has no choice but to let them have their say. It's a pain, but they've got a decent amount of pull in the association. The rest of the conservatives just start shouting, demanding they get rid of Arata, immediately calling him some kind of demonic freak. All sorts of wild accusations start flying from their side of the room, and Ryo can't help but notice they're way louder than usual. Rei leans over and tells him that for anyone who didn't see Arata's heroism firsthand, he just looks like a massive threat to the whole system. But then a powerful voice cuts through all the noise from the conservative section, and it's none other than Kamigari. He straight up tells his own people to shut their mouths, which leaves everyone completely stunned, since this dude is the leader of the entire conservative faction. Kamigari finally speaks his mind, admitting that, yes, Arata did conspire with the Navy Guildmaster to break out. And yeah, he's wielding some kind of unknown cracked power. But he points out he also personally saw Arata use his own body as a shield to protect people, even when he was completely exhausted. The kid was totally drained of mana, but still kept. Kamigari challenges his peers, asking them who the hell they'd call a Slayer, if not a guy like Arata who puts everyone else's safety before his own. Kamigari then goes nuclear on his own allies, reminding them that they couldn't do a single thing when Takatora went on his little rampage. Then in a shocking twist, Kamigari tells Doju that if he's looking for someone to punish, he should punish him. Kamigari admits that he and the other guards were the ones who completely abandoned their posts when things got real. That's the cue for the ordinary citizens in the room to start speaking up for Arata. They yell to Doju that our boy risked his own life to save every last one of them, talking about how desperately he fought during the attack on the association. No cap, the dude was bleeding and bruised but didn't stop for a second. They practically beg Doju to recognize Arata as a true Slayer because he fought for them, the people. After hearing everyone out, Doju announces that since there are no more objections, he's going with the verdict the people have shown him. And with that, Doju officially makes Arata a Slayer of the bronze rank. Doju explains that Arata will now live under the protection of the Navy Guild, and Rei lets out a huge sigh of relief. It looks like everything actually worked out, but as Kamigari walks past Rei, he mutters that he only did it for one reason. Apparently, Arata saved his sister's life, and he absolutely hates being in anyone's debt. Doju tells Arata to keep fighting for the people and prove his worth through his actions and achievements. But he also gives him a serious warning if he ever forgets who he's fighting for. The association will be the ones to pass judgment on him again. Once that's settled, Doju turns his attention to Ryo and Rei. He reminds them they're the ones responsible for busting Arata out of jail and throwing him onto the battlefield without permission. A little while later, Arata is finally able to leave the hearing. It's not long after that he gets his official Slayer badge. Meanwhile, Toyoi is crashing over at Rei's place for a bit. Even though Arata couldn't care less about the badge, he didn't have much of a choice but to accept it. But the real world hits different because by the time he gets home, he finds a massive stack of unpaid utility bills waiting for him. And this is the exact moment he's thanking his lucky stars he became a slayer because there's absolutely no way his broke self would have been able to pay the bills otherwise. Arata's still shuffling through the envelopes when out of nowhere, a girl launches herself at him from the side. The silver-haired girl tells Arata she's been waiting for him, and no cap, she looks way too hyped to see him. While Arata is completely clueless about who this girl is, she grabs him and asks if he'll finally let her dissect him. She's giving off major creep vibes, practically begging Arata to let her see what's on the inside. Arata freaks out and blasts her away using his suit's power, but this just seems to get the girl even more excited. She whips out a full set of surgical tools, drooling as she tells Arata she can't wait to get a look inside him. She lunges at him. Talk about a clutch save. Ray rolls up right on schedule, looking like she totally saw this mess coming a mile away. Ray wastes no time flipping the attacker and putting her in a lock. The girl's like, "Didn't you get the memo from the dojo?" But Ray's just like, "Oh, I'm fully aware of the plan." Turns out this whole welcome party was just a prelude to their visit to the Research Institute tomorrow. The second Arata hears Research Institute, all the puzzle pieces click into place and he realizes who this girl actually is. No cap, this is Akiko, the literal director of the Slayer Research Institute. Fast forward to the next day. Arata's now strapped into a chair in Akiko's lab getting hit with the 3rd degree. And when Akiko finds out he created a fisher from scratch and managed to tap into Regnus's power, she absolutely loses her mind. Her scientific curiosity goes into overdrive. She's suddenly obsessed with the biological chaos happening inside Arata. Arata tries to explain that things have been complicated, and he hasn't even had a chance to process everything himself. He mentions he's got his own plans, but Akiko's got zero chill and just blurts out, "I can't wait anymore," before tying him down. She's aiming for a front row unfiltered seat to his internal systems. Arata's just sitting there thinking, is this for real? And he immediately concludes that telling this mad scientist about his powers was a mass. That's his cue as Akiko whips out her signature skill, the virtual autopsy. It's a crazy technique that lets her perform a full dissection using something called a water mirror scalpel, all without. Basically, she can peel back every layer of his body without leaving a scratch. While Arata's having a full-blown panic attack, Ray casually strolls in and says something like, "Yeah, Akiko's a total weirdo, but her skill is legit." Ray tells him not to sweat it, promising that when it comes to this kind of analysis, Akiko is the best in the business. She even admits that her first time on Akiko's table was low-key terrifying too. Arata, still pinned down, demands to know what the hell kind of skill this is, because he's never seen a Slayer do anything remotely like it. Meanwhile, Akiko is on another planet completely floored by the data she's seeing. She looks up from her scan and reveals that Arata's entire biological makeup is nothing like a normal Slayer's. Akiko declares that he shares the same origin as a Magai. His internal traits are practically a perfect match. Arata's just like, "Bruh, I'm still clueless about all this." But he admits the power feels like it's finally syncing with his body. That's when Akiko drops a bombshell telling him his body is the key to literally unlocking a gateway to the demon realm. Arata is shook, having absolutely no clue what she's even talking about. So, Akiko starts from the top, asking him what he knows about magic rifts. Arata gives the basic rundown. They're cracks in reality where Dark Souls spawn from. He compares it to a video game dungeon that just vanishes after you take down the final boss. Akiko nods, agreeing that limited time event dungeon is a pretty solid way to describe it. But then she hits him with the twist they've found structures inside these rifts that point to an alternate history, and some Magai can even speak. She adds that some have even been seen forming squads with clear strategic objectives. This discovery hits different. It means they're not just fighting monsters from a portal, they're dealing with invaders from a whole other world. Akiko explains that the magic rifts are just the doorways these Dark Souls are using to pour out of the demon realm. She admits that most of this is still just a theory since they're working with limited intel, but she's certain there's a path that leads from the rifts back to the demon realm, and Arata is the only one who can find it. He's the living clue to where it all began. Is actually located inside the demon realm itself. It finally clicks for Arata that his next big mission is to track down some dude who's holed up in the demon realm. But then Aki tells Arata that something else about his body is low-key freaking her out. She explains that when she was checking out his astral body and chi circulation, she saw a color that totally didn't belong to him. She's pretty sure it's separate from Regnus, which has Arata completely shook, but Aki admits she doesn't really know what's up with it. After all, he's the first person of his kind she's ever had to deal with. So Ray jumps in, urging Arata to watch his back. He points out that even if they manage to find a way in, no Slayer has ever set foot in the demon realm before. Ray says they have absolutely no idea what's even lurking in the demon realm. For all they know, his very existence might not even be allowed there. Arata reassures them. He knows it's dangerous, but he's convinced that if he doesn't get his ass to the demon realm ASAP, then nothing is ever going to change. Aki says she gets where he's coming from, but points out they wouldn't be struggling like this if they just knew the right way to do it. Still, Arata tells them both he doesn't have time to sit around and wait. He adds that there's only one surefire way to find out how to break into the demon realm. Aki's immediately like, "What do you mean by that?" And Arata just says he's gonna have to force Regnus to spill the beans. Arata explains he's been thinking, and it's pretty clear Regnus needs him alive. So it's a big problem for the demon if our boy actually dies. So Arata asks Aki if she can handle medical stuff like actual surgery, and Aki reveals that she was the one who personally operated on Rei's wounds. The second Arata hears this, he realizes his absolutely insane plan might actually work. With zero hesitation, my man shoves his sword right into his own neck and just blacks out on the spot. Next thing you know, he's right back in Regnus's weird mind space. Regnus can't believe what a complete idiot Arata is, but Arata just trolls him, saying he knew he'd show up because he's such a worrywart. Regnus chews Arata out, claiming he didn't want to be there, but since they're already face to face, he has to admit Arata's idea wasn't half bad. Regnus is shocked that Arata is dead serious about going to the demon realm, and Arata pushes him, saying, "Come on, this is good for you too, man." But Regnus lets him know that there are other things he's got to do, and besides that, Arata is still pathetically weak. Our boy is confused when he mentions, "There are other things to do," and Regnus explains he literally can't say more because of some restriction placed on him. He does make it crystal clear, though, that there is no way in hell he's letting a weakling like him waltz into the demon realm. This pisses Arata off, so he whips out his weapon, saying he is so done with Regnus's bullshit. Arata declares he's going to the demon realm to stop the rifts, and he doesn't give a damn what it takes to get there. Regnus just laughs his ass off, telling Arata he's got a big mouth for such a little guy. Regardless, he decides he'll play along with Arata for a bit. He lifts one single finger, and this massive dark cloud just erupts in the space, causing Arata to start shaking in his boots. Regnus reveals he's only using the power of one hand, and Arata is already completely shook from it. And even though it would be a total waste if he died, Regnus tells him that he doesn't really have a choice in the matter. Since Arata is so dead set on risking his life, Regnus tells him to show him what he's got right here and now. This just makes Arata even more pissed. But he steels himself for a showdown with Regnus. Regnus is totally hyped for this, telling Arata to show him some proof of his so-called power. Arata just lunges forward, screaming at him to shut his trap and just tell him what he needs to know. Regnus just cackles at him, mocking how desperate he is to find a way into the demon realm. Right then, the chains around the demon's neck start glowing a menacing red. And Regnus tells Arata that if he really wants to know how to get to the demon realm, he's gonna have to break the restriction binding him. Arata fires a huge blast at him, but it gets blocked like it was absolutely nothing. Regnus taunts him, asking if that's seriously all he's got, and warns him that he's gonna die on the spot if he doesn't step his game up. Regnus is all like, "Look, I'm not actually trying to kill you," but makes it clear he can't exactly pull his punches. It's all because of this so-called restriction he's bound by. Arata's getting real tired of his excuses, calling him pathetic, and honestly Regnus doesn't even deny it, admitting he's got zero shame. Regnus tells Arata to show him what he's really made of, unless he's got a death wish, and before Arata can even blink, it's on. He gets absolutely demolished by the sheer force of Regnus's power. Arata's slammed into the ground, blood spraying everywhere from the impact. It finally hits him just how cracked Regnus is. Dude's on a whole other level using just a single arm. That one attack leaves Arata in a world of hurt, feeling like his entire body is about to turn to dust, and Regnus is looking totally unimpressed. Seeing how badly Arata's struggling, he basically tells him to step up his game. But Arata ain't giving up that easy, declaring that this pain is nothing, and I mean nothing, compared to what his brother endured. Regnus is low-key impressed that Arata still has some fight left in him. He then explains that soot is the final unbreakable thing that remains, even after being torched by the very fires of hell. Regnus reveals that he's given Arata that exact same power, telling him to stop holding back and fight for real. Regnus unleashes a massive wave of energy, but Arata just slices right through that thing like it's butter. Arata smirks, telling Regnus he figured out they're running on the same OS, so he just straight up jacked his technique. He then lets loose a storm of soot weapons right at Regnus. And you know what, Regnus actually gives him props for being so clever. But he follows it up with an "anything you can do, I can do better" vibe, effortlessly deflecting every single one of Arata's attacks. He's straight up clowning on him, asking if he's already run out of tricks. Regnus fires a volley of blades at Arata, who quickly throws up a water shield to defend himself. The shield holds for the most part, but one sneaky blade pierces through and digs into Arata's shoulder. In that split second, something just clicks for Arata. Of course, Regnus just keeps mocking him, not letting up for a second. He's like, seriously, is this the best you can possibly do? He keeps pushing him, daring him to show him something real, so Arata readies his sword for another go. Regnus looks bored out of his mind, claiming all Arata is good for is just swinging his power around like a brute. Done with the trash talk, Arata dashes forward, using a cloud of soot as a smokescreen to mess with his vision. But Regnus is totally unfazed, calling it another cheap trick to try and catch him off guard. Regnus keeps his cool as a ton of weapons fly at him, saying it doesn't matter how many fakes Arata creates. But bruh, he's about to eat those words because the real Arata suddenly appears right in his face. Even then, Regnus is cocky, thinking there's no way Arata can hurt him, but our boy doesn't aim for Regnus. He swings at the chains wrapped around his body. The sword is juiced up with Aoi's powerful water ability, and with one clean hit, the chains completely shatter. This leaves Regnus looking absolutely shook to his core. Arata is hyped because his big brain play actually worked, just as he suspected. Regnus's control over soot is totally useless against water. Plus, he finally figured out that those chains were the restriction Regnus kept whining about. Regnus just starts cracking up, actually impressed that Arata used the whole weapon storm as a decoy for that one perfect hit. But then Arata notices his arm is getting consumed by the very soot he's been using. Regnus tells him this is his big chance to absorb all that raw power and seriously level up. He lets Arata know that it's all on him now to unlock the true potential of the soot. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Aki has just finished repairing the messed up tissue on Arata's neck. Now they're just waiting for him to wake up. And Ray is starting to freak out because no cap, it's been hours. Out of nowhere, Arata violently jolts awake, screaming his head off like he just saw a demon. Ray rushes over to him, but he just brushes her off, insisting he's fine, and that his wounds don't even hurt anymore. But before he can get another word out, Ray just smacks him right across the face. Aki is completely shook, and Arata is just frozen, totally stunned by Ray's sudden move. She absolutely lights him up, screaming at him to stop acting like his death wouldn't matter to anyone. She even drives the point home, telling him that Aoi would probably be destroyed if he died too. That finally gets through to Arata. He realizes she's only this mad because she cares, and he apologizes for being so clueless. Ray then lays down the law, telling Arata to never make her worry like that again, not when he's a member of her guild. Arata promises to be a good boy, but then suddenly the cheek Ray slapped starts to burn like crazy, and he can't help but let out a scream of pure agony. Ray just casually tells him he should never mistake her slap for a normal one. Still, Arata is hyped to tell them both that he successfully squeezed the information he wanted out of Regnus. Soon after, Arata and Ray meet up with the other Gold Slayers to fill them in on the intel he managed to get from Regnus. Rayo is immediately skeptical, asking the group if they can really buy what Regnus is selling. He just doesn't see why an enemy would ever spill a secret that huge. But Arata swears that Regnus isn't lying, and Ray backs him up, saying she doesn't know how he did it. But Arata literally put his own neck on the line to uncover this truth. Takuto, on the other hand, is just getting impatient with all the suspense. He just wants to know what the method is. So, Arata finally reveals the game plan. The only path to the demon realm is by beating the boss inside an S-rank magic rift. After that, he's supposed to create a brand new rift all on his own and use that custom portal to cross over to the other side. Takuto's mind is totally blown by this revelation, since he's always been obsessed with Arata's unique powers. Doju, however, is freaking out because an S-rank rift is nothing to play with. He explains that if an A-rank rift has the firepower of an entire nation's army, then an S-rank is basically a world-ending catastrophe. Apparently, only a handful of S-rank rifts have ever been documented, which just proves how next-level dangerous they are. Hearing this, Ryo concludes that pulling off a mission like this is basically a pipe dream. But even though they have no idea when one might appear, Arata is totally fired up. Ryo then tells them the real issue isn't when an S-rank rift shows up, but whether Arata is strong enough to handle it. He tells him point blank that against an S-rank monster, he stands zero chance. It turns out that whenever an S-rank rift does appear, it takes a minimum of 2 Golden Slayers to even attempt the mission. And as for any Bronze or Silver rank Slayers who dare to enter, yeah, their chance of survival is a big fat 0. But even after hearing all of that, Arata is dead set on his goal of making it to the demon realm. No matter what Arata says, he wants to end the era of humans cowering in fear of rifts. Doju is all for it, saying this could be the first time Slayers actually go on the attack, instead of just waiting to be surprised by the next rift. However, there's a big but. There's just one tiny problem. and that's the fact that Arata needs to get way stronger. Shion immediately proposes a solution Arata needs to take on the dead-minute trial to power level, and she'll be his opponent. Rei is floored when she hears this since no one has ever tried this trial against a gold rank before. Ryo, however, isn't worried at all. He thinks this is the perfect way to get Arata ready for whatever insanity he's going to face inside that S-rank rift. While they're all debating it, Arata is just standing there, having absolutely no idea what this dead-minute trial actually is. Dojun explains it to him. It's an insane survival test that's used when someone needs to clear a magic rift that's way higher than their current rank. Since Arata wants to dive into an S-rank rift, Dojun figures this is the only way. The trial itself is basically a test, where you have to survive against 3 higher-ranking slayers for 1 single minute. The mission's bare minimum requirement is just to survive. And since nobody knows when an S-rank rift will just pop up, Dojo is convinced they've got to be ready to throw down so they don't miss their shot when one finally shows. Even though this whole test is crazy dangerous, Arata's basically like, bring it on. A little bit later, the test kicks off, and Arata gets absolutely rocked in just 10 seconds flat, knocked out cold by a combo assault from Dojo, Takuto, and Shion. Ouch. Afterward, over at the Navy Guild, Rei suits up in her training gear and gets right in Arata's face. She tells him that his whole self-taught style ain't gonna cut it anymore, and it's time he learned something new. She promises she's about to hammer the fundamentals of every last thing he needs to know straight into his skull. But instead of being freaked out, Arata is totally hyped for this. Rei then breaks it down for him, explaining that the most critical part of any skill is the image you have in your head, which needs to be crystal clear, totally precise and sharper than a razor's edge. Rei keeps trying to dumb it down so Arata can wrap his head around it, but our boy looks like his brain just blue screened. Once she's done with the lecture, she tells him to get in front of a giant wall of water and bust out 10,000 basic skills. She lets him know that if he really crushes it, the payoff is going to be massive. So Arata and Toyoi get to work facing the wall and just unleashing a non-stop barrage of attacks for hours on end. By the time they finally hit their target number, both of them are completely gassed and panting like crazy. But just when they think they can finally collapse, Rei strolls up and tells them they've got 20,000 more to go, which absolutely blows their minds. Rei says the real training only begins when you feel like you've got nothing left in the tank. Many hours later, the two are so beyond exhausted, they just collapse onto the ground, unable to even lift their arms. Then out of nowhere, the water wall starts crashing down, and Arata's body reacts instantly to blast the water away. Arata can't believe it. He managed to activate a skill on pure reflex alone, even though he was positive he was totally drained. Rei is seriously impressed, telling him that split-second reaction is the razor's edge between living and dying. Later, Arata makes his way to the Lion Flame Guild, where Ryo tells him he's about to get cooked for real this time, since he was holding back before. With a crazy amount of excitement, Ryo announces that their special training is about to begin the scorching endurance test in the Inferno Hell. Arata has no clue what that even means until the walls of the room literally burst into flames, and Ryo informs him that he's going to have to learn Slayer basics right here in this furnace, gesturing to a table stacked high with books. That's when it hits Arata. He's not in a gym. He's in a classroom from hell. Ryo explains to Arata that the entire goal of this training session is to make sure he can keep his cool and stay sharp even in the most insane situations, and never lose his ability to think and analyze. He tells Arata to burn with a cool heart. Meanwhile, Arata is literally sweating buckets, just trying to read in a room that's hot enough to forge steel. Anytime Arata looks like he's about to complain or say he's tired, Ryo just screams at him to shut his mouth and stay focused on the training. Ryo is constantly pushing him, telling him to burn hotter while keeping his mind as calm as a frozen lake. After several agonizing hours, Arata finally passes out, and Ryo just compliments him, saying there's nothing left to teach. Ryo's confident that Arata has now mastered the art of clear thinking and fiery calmness, even under extreme pressure. Arata, who's still dripping with sweat, can't believe that was all the training he got, especially with the Death Minute trial retest, just a day away. We then see Arata training by himself out in the woods, but what he doesn't know is that a suspicious, shadowy figure is watching his every move. The next day, Arata pulls up to the training grounds for his retest, and Dojo doesn't waste any time laying down the law. He tells him straight up that if he fails this test, there's zero chance he'll be joining them on the S-rank Rift mission. And just like that, the test is on with Arata, making the first move, dashing straight for the trio. He knows he got absolutely folded in seconds last time, but now he's ready to unleash everything he's got. He kicks things off by blasting out a massive smokescreen of soot, and Takuto immediately gets what he's doing, forcing them to be careful. Arata's playing smart, making sure they don't accidentally hit each other in the confusion. Takuto fires a shot to clear away the soot, but he quickly realizes Arata's already 10 steps ahead, having laid a double trap. He finds his feet stuck in a mud pit, and honestly, he's not even mad, he's impressed. Dojo, on the other hand, decides to go on the offensive. He lunges in trying to take Arata down with one of his skills. But plot twist, Dojo used that exact same move before, and this time our boy is more than ready for it. With what looks like zero effort, Arata completely counters the attack. And when Dojo sees this, he's just floored, a mix of shocked and seriously impressed. This just goes to show how insanely fast Arata adapts in a fight. With Arata now launched into the air, Shien thinks he's an easy target and fires a massive bolt of lightning at him, causing a huge explosion. But when the smoke clears, they realize they got played. It was just a soot dummy. The real Arata is still hovering in the air. He's looking down at the trio, ready to use every single thing they've taught him against them. Arata activates his burst cannon skill, firing a massive cannonball of soot right at the three of them. Takuto's impressed with Arata's power, but he's pretty sure this is where the kid's luck finally runs out. The trio combines their attacks, unleashing a ginormous explosion. At this point, they've just hit the 40-second mark in the test. Rio, watching from the side, admits that it's a massive improvement, but in the end, it's still a failure in her book. Except when the smoke clears, everyone's jaws are on the floor because Arata isn't a pile of ash. Instead, there's a literal rift hanging in the air, and before they can even process it, Arata teleports right behind them. His right arm is glowing with dark, demonic-looking soot, and he's sweating buckets from pushing himself way past his limits. It looks like all that insane training from Rei and Rio actually paid off big time, but just as he's about to catch his breath, the trio jumps him all at once, trying to finish the fight for good. But Arata just vanishes again, slipping into another rift like it's nothing. Dojo is completely stunned when he sees this. He can't believe Arata picked up a whole new technique and was already using it perfectly in the middle of a battle. Shion totally agrees, saying that Arata's growth rate is just off the charts. Even Takuto has to give him props, admitting the dude is low-key, playing them like a fiddle. Before they know it, over 10 minutes have passed, and they're all still going at it. Rei is loving what he's seeing. It's obvious that the trio is having the time of their lives out there on the battlefield. Finally, after a grueling 32 minutes, Arata gets knocked down for the count. Dojo walks over and tells him he passed with flying colors. He adds that it's been a long time since they had a fight that was actually this fun, and Arata gave them that chance. Arata, completely exhausted, just manages a fist bump, stoked that he's finally getting to go to the demon realm. But Shion is quick to kill the mood, warning him not to get cocky because letting his guard down is not an option. Suddenly, that bizarre little shadow creature from the other day just pops into existence on Arata's shoulder. Everyone is completely blindsided because they have no idea what this thing is. Rio just sighs, figuring she can't be surprised anymore since Arata's skill clearly has a lot more secrets. A little later, Arata makes his way to the Slayer Research Institute. There, Aki brings up the strange energy residue that was left inside of him by someone else. She explains that the tiny shadowy creature is that very residue. Apparently, it used his own power to give itself a physical form. Arata has to admit that whenever he looks at the little guy, he feels this weird sense of calm and reassurance. Aki explains that the little guy is basically a newborn, but she's confident it's going to level up and evolve. She tells Arata he should probably name the little critter, and he lands on Piggy. With all that sorted, Rei's like, "Alright, let's bounce and go celebrate." And bruh, Arata is totally floored when he sees that literally everyone he knows, even the Golden Slayers, is at this massive party. Rio comes over and explains the whole thing is a surprise party to celebrate him acing his exam. Of course, Shion slides into the convo, laying it on thick and acting all sweet, basically asking Arata if he'd like to be with her. But as the self-proclaimed older sister Rei has zero chill and immediately crashes her little scheme, getting right between them. Rei calls her out, saying Shion's way too young to be pulling the older sister act, but Shion claps back hard. She fires back that Rei was the one with no shame getting all huggy with Arata right out in the open. The tension between those two is thick enough to cut with a knife, while everyone else is just vibing and having a good time. A bit later, Doju pulls Arata aside and tells him they've got to figure out who's going to escort him into the S-rank rift, for when that thing finally decides to pop up. He makes it crystal clear that only one person is allowed to go in with him. Since Arata's the one putting his neck on the line, he gets the final say on who his S-rank partner will be. Without missing a beat, the Golden Slayers all start their sales pitches, desperately trying to get him to pick them. Shion goes hard on the big sister angle, promising to look out for him, while Rio starts bringing up all the times he's helped Arata out, basically calling in his favors. Even Doju and Rei jump in, making their cases, but then Arata stops them. He tells the whole group that he's already made up his mind, and with absolutely no hesitation, he announces who he wants as his partner. Once the party winds down, everyone starts heading home, and Arata makes sure to thank Ray for putting it all together. Ray just shrugs it off, saying it was no big deal, since let's be real, everyone's low-key obsessed with him anyway. Arata gets real for a sec, admitting that being with everyone felt like he finally had a proper family, mentioning his brother was the only one he had for so long. He now feels like he's got to get way stronger to protect the people who matter to him. A moment later, Arata reminds Ray that she's walking in the complete wrong direction, but no one can really blame her, since her sense of direction is notoriously awful. So with the test officially in the bag, the crew spends the next few weeks just waiting for an S-rank rift to finally spawn. But what they don't know is something wild was going down back in Takatora's jail cell. He gets a mysterious invite from some shady character from the demon realm. Fast forward a few months, and an S-rank magic rift finally appears. This is the moment Arata's been grinding for. Doju looks at him and says that every single person is counting on him to pull through. As he's standing in front of the rift ready to dive in, Takuto shows up telling Arata his one and only job is to not die. And from their little back and forth, it's obvious Takuto is the partner Arata chose to bring into the S-rank magic rift.